All right, I think we're live. Peace. What's happening, everybody? Let's do the damn thing, shall we?
If you're sad and blue, don't be afraid. I'll be here waiting for you. Yes, I am. If you're sad and blue, don't be afraid. I'll be here waiting for you. If you're sad and blue, don't be afraid. I'll be here waiting for you. Yes, I am. If you're sad and blue, don't be afraid. I'll be here waiting for If you're sad and blue, don't be afraid. I'll be here waiting for you. Yes, I am. If you're sad and blue, don't be afraid. I'll be here waiting for If you're sad and blue, don't be afraid. I'll be here waiting for you. Yes, I am. If you're sad and blue, don't be afraid. I'll be here waiting for If you're sad and blue, don't be afraid. I'll be here waiting for you. Yes, I am. If you're sad and blue, don't be afraid. I'll be here waiting for you.
What is up? What is up? What is up, everybody? Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are entering the final phase, and I think what we've all been waiting to see for these last 10 years, we're about to see. Now, when exactly is it going to happen? I don't know. Will it be prior to the 2026 midterms, after the 2026 midterms? I don't know. But what I do know is back in 2017, Q told us, look to Twitter, exactly this. My fellow Americans, the storm is upon us. God bless. Now, that was before Trump got taken off Twitter, right? But when he got taken off Twitter, he started Truth Social immediately after. So Truth Social kind of became the platform that he would normally do what he would do on Twitter. And here we have on Truth Social, Trump posts, I believe this was on the 5th of November, if I'm not mistaken. My fellow Americans, our movement is far from over. In fact, our fight has only just begun. And if that fight is characterized by the metaphor of the storm, and Trump is saying the fight's only just begun, then the storm is upon us would actually fit there. And this is very telling because, what's up, Anise? This is very telling because what we've been witnessing over the last few months seem to be pointing in that direction. The deep state's being taken down. The swamp is being drained. Lots and lots of people are going to jail. Lots more are being arrested by the military and disappearing. And we're seeing the deep state in their death throes. We're seeing the media propaganda kicking back up again. They're now using their social media influencers to try to push the narrative. We're starting to see acts of domestic acts of domestic terrorism taking place, as well as major busts of terrorist rings, terror cells, drug organizations, drug traffickers, etc. So the whole network is being wiped out as we speak. And the last to go will be the big fish at the top who, well, if you've been following me long enough. Oh, E-Nice, my bad. E-Nice. The way you spelled it, it looked like one word. But anyway, if you guys have been following me for a few years now, when I had my bigger channels, you would have been made aware that these top players have already been removed, arrested, and, and disappeared, done away with, put on trial, and executed. But they were replaced. There's AI avatars, there's skin mask actors, there's body doubles, all sorts of ways that the public can be deceived into believing that these people are still around. And the grand finale will be seeing these people go to jail. That will be the grand finale. And, or at least in my opinion. And that's why, even though the grand finale has already happened with the 2018, 2020, and 2022 raids, and now we're seeing more raids in 2025, all that had to be done in secret because they still had networks of operatives that were willing to continue the operations. So, in order to completely abolish these deep state operations, their networks had to be completely broken up. And the best way to do it was to remove the people at the top and replace them, and use the replacements to pose as the people at the top, but they'll never give the order to the people at the bottom to change strategy because the Trump administration is on their ass. So they'll move forward with the orders and get themselves caught. And that's exactly what we've been seeing. That would be the purpose for using the body doubles and the placeholders. The other purpose for using the body holders and the body doubles and the placeholders, the other purpose for that would be in order to prevent the media from exposing that Trump is actually going after the deep state players. Also, prevent the foreign entities that are working in conjunction with these domestic traitors, these domestic enemies. It would stop them from becoming alerted that the heat's on them too. So everybody feels comfortable, everybody feels safe, but they're not comfortable and they're not safe. And as we can see, the feds have been on their ass. So when Trump says our fight has only just begun, he characterizes it as a fight because the enemy still has capabilities. They still have small networks still in operation that haven't been detected yet. And they still have the ability to carry out mass casualty events. Hence tonight's topic. They will fight, but we are ready. Mass casualty event incoming. And I believe that as progress is being made and steps are being taken to get closer and closer to taking down this entire cabal, worldwide, that is, the enemy will fight. You see, when the cops are looking for a criminal, they might have a fight when they catch that criminal, but they might not. The criminal might surrender and go peacefully. So it'll normally be, so a situation like that would be characterized as, we will find him and bring him to justice, or we will find her and bring her to justice, right? They rarely ever say the fight is on, because they have the overwhelming force and they know that this suspect that they're after doesn't really have the capabilities of putting up much of a fight, even if they were to try. But when Trump says our fight has only just begun, and he characterizes this whole operation as a fight, that lets you know right there that the enemy is not going to go quietly or peacefully. They will lash out, they will strike back, and because the majority of Americans support Trump, they will take out their anger and their frustrations on the American people. We are the hostages, and the hostage takers are in the crosshairs, and they are going to start executing hostages. That's what I believe is going to happen, and it's going to come in the form of a mass casualty event. And maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. But if I'm wrong, I would have to say this: that Louisville plane crash, that was an attempt at a mass casualty event. Because I looked over some details for that of that crash, because it's very suspicious to me. I find it extremely suspicious. I was looking up some articles with the details of it, and oddly enough, the death toll number is now at 13. How's that for numerology, huh? 13. And not only that, I learned that the plane was a cargo flight headed to Hawaii, so it was fully loaded with fuel, because if it was a domestic flight, it probably wouldn't have been fully loaded with fuel, but it was fully loaded with fuel, and the area where the plane actually crashed included several businesses, and get this, one of those businesses was a fuel depot. So it seems to me like whatever happened with that plane, let's say it was a domestic terrorist event, it was deliberately sabotaged or had a detonator put in one of the engines to catch it on fire, some sort of incendiary device, catch the engine on fire, take the plane down on takeoff, so it crashes right into that fuel depot, and boom, half the city shut down, dozens of people dead, mass casualty event. And it's so weird that happened the day after there were all these major delays with the airlines. And the delays are still happening. I believe that Homeland Security and or the FBI are investigating all of these airline workers, and they're pulling people off the job, taking them in for questioning. They're arresting some people and taking them into custody and charging them and shit. And this is what's causing the disruptions, the operational disruptions. Because perhaps they have intel that one of the mass casualty events will be done with airplanes. And you notice the delays were all across the country. It wasn't just one specific airport in one specific city. It was dozens of airports across the entire country that all happened to be in big blue major cities, by the way. So I believe there's something much bigger at play when it comes to these flight delays. And I believe that plane crash that happened in Louisville was either a thwarted attack, a failed attempt at an attack, or it was a straight up attack that just didn't go the way they planned. A failed attack, but it was an actual attack. Because there's several videos of the crash. You guys can go look it up if you like. And one video, you can actually see the plane on its side flying over a residential neighborhood. Now imagine if that fuel depot was large enough to cause a massive explosion and set several houses on fire in that neighborhood, the kind of chaos that would have caused. So I believe there are operatives, deep state operatives within the airlines that are sabotaging these planes or planning on either planting explosives or sabotaging these planes in order to cause a mass casualty event. And I believe that they're going to keep trying until they're successful with something. Hence the part of my title, they will fight, but we are ready. We're not ready as in we're armed up and got our vest and our weapons and we're ready to fight back and take to the streets. No. We're ready in the sense that we may not know exactly who they are, but we know what they're planning. We know what their targets are. We know how to escape and evade. We know when to engage and when not to engage. And we know as much as we need to know to protect ourselves and protect our families. And that's what makes us ready. We're ready to survive whatever it is the enemy has planned. Because if Trump keeps going down this road of destroying their entire operation, from the drug trafficking to the human trafficking to the money laundering to all that shit, if Trump continues to destroy their operations, they are going to continue to lash out, and it will be bloody and it will be violent, because that's who these people are and that's what the fuck they do. And make sure you guys hit the like button. We got 35 watching and 22 likes. Make sure y'all hit that like button. I'm coming in. Shout out to all my Rumble viewers. Brother Lee, what's going on? Kansas 1022, what's happening? Make sure you guys hit that thumbs up on Rumble too, man. Hit that thumbs up. Say hi in the chat. All that. Stimulate the algorithm. Get more people to the show. So Donald Trump on November 4th, that was the day before he posted the My Fellow Americans post. This one. This was on November. Yep, November 5th was when he posted that one. And November 4th, the day before, he posted this. And so it begins. So what begins exactly? Well, what did we just witness? We just witnessed J.D. Vance take a piss on Israel and say, I'm not kissing your wall. We see Trump pull the plug on Netanyahu. We're seeing the rest of the world pivot against Israel. We're seeing Israel turning up in the Israeli people turning up against the Zionist regime in their country. We see the FBI investigating the Charlie Kirk situation, which involved Zionists. And if Trump is saying the fight's only begun, Q also told us that we're saving Israel for last. So if we're in the final phase, this is the phase where the Israeli infiltrators are being rooted out. And the Zionist money and influence and blackmail and control that they once had, they no longer have. And when they start to lose control, they carry out some sort of mass casualty event in order to regain control. It's part of their order out of chaos theory. So when Donald Trump says, and so it begins, I believe he's referring to the fight against the big boss, because Israel, due to the nature of the entrenchment, Israel is what I would consider the big boss. So it begins. Now, Trump's been bombing the shit out of them drug boats in the Caribbean, and he's been talking real heavy about Venezuela. Now, it turns out that he is of the understanding that a ground invasion of Venezuela, or strikes within the borders of Venezuela, would constitute war against another sovereign nation. But the war at sea, it's free reign. And in case you guys didn't know, there is such a thing as maritime law that governs the seas. But what really governs the seas is piracy. Whoever's got the biggest boats, the biggest guns, and the most effective fighting force, they will control the waters. And there's not a goddamn thing anybody can say or do about it. So when you see the U.S. stopping these drug boats and bombing them in international waters where there are no drug prohibitions, Essentially, our military, our Navy is engaging in piracy. It's a form of piracy, but it's piracy against criminals with ill intent. So the people would accept that form of piracy, just like when the British Navy decided that they were going to go after ships taking slaves from Africa to the Caribbean and South America, and they would raid those slave ships and they would seize the slaves and take them back to Africa. Sometimes they would sink the whole slave ship and kill everybody, depending on how the slave ship crew reacted, whether they opened fire on the British Navy or not. But that's also a form of piracy, but it was piracy with a righteous cause. They were committing piracy against these slave ships and stealing their merchandise, which would be the slaves essentially, but they were freeing them. Right, Megan D. This is the revolution will not be televised. Yeah. So now we have, with the escalation with Venezuela, it appears as if the Russians are stepping in. So Russia deploys troops, tanks, warships, and advanced defense systems to Venezuela, marking its strongest military presence ever in Latin America. Now, again, surface level, Trump is at odds with Venezuela. Venezuela is allied with Russia. Trump is also supposed to be at odds with Russia. But in reality, Trump and Putin are allies, and they've been allies since the beginning. And they've been working together against the deep state. Trump has been fighting the deep state here in America. Putin's been fighting the deep state over there in Russia and in Ukraine. And with Trump's admitting that the U.S. can't just outright launch a ground attack on Venezuela within their borders, we now have the Russians showing up and stationing equipment and manpower within Venezuelan borders. And this was possible because of the illusion of Trump and Putin being enemies and not allies. Because, of course, if Maduro knew or believed that Putin was allied with Trump, he wouldn't want the Russians there in Venezuela. But because he's of the belief that Venezuela is his friend, Russia is his friend and an enemy of Trump, he will accept them and let them come into Venezuela. Now they've been invited in. And if you know anything about vampires, you have to invite them in first. Then once they get in, they bite you. So essentially what I believe is happening here is it's gonna wind up being the Russians to overthrow Maduro rather than the Americans. And the Russians will act as the American proxy on the ground in Venezuela. So while the U.S. is out running Southcom and bombing the drug boats and shit, the Russians will be in Venezuela taking control of Maduro's government. That's why I believe the Russians are being deployed. But it's being done under the guise of all this aggression against Venezuela and Russia stepping in to help poor little Venezuela. So that's the ruse. That's the deception. But the truth is Russia is actually stepping in to help Trump, because now Trump is going to have an armed element publicly on the ground in Venezuela. It's actually pretty cleverly played. And this is one way pretending to be enemies with Putin works to Trump's advantage. Because again, with the legal restrictions on Trump launching another war, a ground war in Venezuela, and with the illusion of Trump being enemies with Putin, that allows Trump to get Putin to put a ground force in Venezuela. So now Trump's homeboy has his military in Venezuela, and upon the order or upon agreement, Trump's homeboy's military is going to take over Venezuela. So you're probably going to hear about it in the fake news. Maybe you won't. But it's always going to be broadcast in the mainstream media as if Russia is enemies with the U.S. and they're taking this and they're posting up in Venezuela to take an aggressive defensive posture against the U.S. Well, that's just the optics. What they're actually doing is they're using the situation with Trump's military aggression against Venezuela. They're using that situation as a ruse to infiltrate Venezuela. And that's exactly what this is. This is not a defense of Venezuela operation by the Russians. This is an infiltration of Venezuela by the Russians under the guise of a defense of Venezuela. You see how you see how dope that is? You see how clever Trump is? This is why he's Trump. This is why. Absolute genius. Absolutely brilliant. Where the fuck is slide 4? There it is. So when I say the deep state, we all have an idea of what this means, right? Well, thank you, Barnes. So this is what I mean by the deep state, the corporation that has hijacked our country. History of the corporate takeover of the United States of America. Now, I know you guys hear about this all the time, but you have to have an understanding of this history in order to begin to understand why Trump is having to play it the way that he's playing it and what we mean when we say infiltration or entrenchment. During the Civil War, the Constitutional Republic abandoned Congress, causing President Lincoln to institute martial law. The de jure republic was taken over by foreign insurgents who replaced it with the United States of America Incorporated in 1871. The corporation went bankrupt in 1912 because of Reconstruction era bonds and was forfeit to the holders of those bonds, the European banking interests behind the Federal Reserve. Maritime salvage liens were placed on every asset of the now federalized states as a surety on debts incurred by the bondholders. In 1933, USA Inc. went bankrupt again. A gold seizure and income tax were imposed on the people to pay off the foreign bankers. None of this was done with full disclosure and as such is not binding. The people are in fact the creditors, not the debtors. Due to ignorance and inaction, the people have given tacit consent to pay back the fraudulent debt and remain under control for the foreign government. Voting for congressmen and presidents today means acquiescence to the illegitimate rule of a corporation. Okay, now that part I disagree with, but because it all depends on who you vote for. But nevertheless, the Organic Act of 1871 was the first law that the lawyers in Congress wrote to create to finalize the corporation. The Federal Reserve Act created the financial system. U.S. Code Title 12, Section 95. I'm not sure what that is. Emergency Banking Acts 1933 is how they shored up their financial system by seizing all the gold. All right. Oh, man, shout out to my brother Robert on the Cash App with the Q challenge with the 17. He says, where we go one, we go all. Yeah, I'm feeling it, man. It's a Q night tonight. It is a Q night tonight. Now let's jump to slide 5. I got so many slides. I hate that you guys keep having to see all these slides as I jump from slide to slide. It kind of takes the thrill away. So, December 17th, 2019. First indictment unsealed will trigger mass population awakening. First arrest will verify action and confirm future direction. They will fight, but you are ready. Marker 9. You see? So back in 2019, Q was telling us indictments and then they will fight. All right? So we've been knowing this for quite some time. Now, the indictments are coming by way of witnesses and evidence being provided by witnesses. And a lot of these witnesses are people who we thought were dead, but are not. And if you look at this slide right here, and I've covered this years ago on my old channel, so I figured I'd bring it back up again because we just had the Charlie Kirk thing, and I was just teaching you guys about how Charlie Kirk could have faked his death and showing you all the possible ways he could have. And I tend to lean more towards him faking it than it actually being real, because we were also told that JFK Jr. and his whole family died in a plane crash. Well, oddly enough, Carolyn showed up at a Trump rally, and this guy named Vincent Fusca started showing up at Trump rallies back in 2016. And Vincent Fusca bears a very odd resemblance to JFK Jr. himself. And this lady in the crowd with that smile, I mean, it's unmistakable. That looks like Carolyn. That looks like his wife. She has the exact same smile. That's crazy. And I believe that these people faked their deaths, turned witnesses, and were protected by the military. Because funny enough, if you look into the JFK Jr. story about the plane crash, there's some, it's mentioned in passing, but it turns out that there was a U.S. Navy ship. I don't know if it was a carrier, destroyer, or frigate, or whatever the frigate was. But there was a U.S. Navy ship within the vicinity of the plane going down, because the rescue efforts, quote unquote, began almost immediately. Once the signal from the plane, once the plane lost signal and communications. So could it be that JFK Jr. faked his death and is protected by the military? Could it be that Charlie Kirk faked his death and is protected by the military because they have inside information? And remember, Charlie Kirk was doing a lot of Israel ass kissing in the beginning. So could it be that Charlie Kirk was a plant to get in good with these Zionists and really hear what they talk about and get a glimpse of their operations and gather intel and evidence on them? And once the Zionists realized that Charlie Kirk was not really on their side because he flipped on them, they had to take him out because he knew too much. And the Trump administration got out in front of it, had Charlie fake his death and got him out of there. And now they have a witness to testify against everybody that the FBI is investigating. Remember when Kash Patel said right after the assassination, quote unquote, he said, "I'll see you in Valhalla," to Charlie Kirk? Well, it turns out that Valhalla is actually an island. It's a colloquialism for an island that the federal government uses for their witness protection program, their witness security program, WITSEC. So could it be that these people who we believe are dead are actually alive, fake their deaths, and they're living in Valhalla, providing intel to help spearhead these operations? It's possible. I mean, the FBI director made mention of Valhalla, and it turns out that Valhalla is some witness protection type shit. So what's that tell you? I mean, it's almost like Kash Patel was telling us himself. April 2nd, 2018, it says, follow Bolton, clean, stage. Learn how to archive online. The streets will not be safe for them. Now, when I saw this back then in 2018, this was before the censorship really started to ramp up. And I was under the impression that Q was instructing us to archive our intel offline because the internet would be cut and we'd lose access. Well, it turns out that the learn to archive online was a warning, because I've lost a lot of data due to censorship. So the warning to learn how to archive offline, which is, again, what I started doing. This is why I have thousands and thousands of slides in my phone, in my gallery. The censorship wiped out a lot of that data. I had my first YouTube channel that got wiped out. I think it was like in December of 2020 or something like that. That channel, I had my entire music catalog on that channel. I mean, like 3 albums worth of music, all gone because I did not archive it offline. And once I lost that to the censorship, I began to take this line seriously. So it's not no internet access is why we need to archive offline. It's no social media access is why we need to archive offline. Because as long as we try to archive on social media by posting and hoping we can keep those posts up, these platforms can take down the posts, censor the posts, and even deplatform you so you can't post anything else. But if you archive offline, you can link up with other people who can post and share that data with them. Or create a new profile or create a new YouTube channel or a new account and start sharing the intel all over again. Kind of like what I did. So we've been warned and forewarned. And notice it says follow Bolton. Didn't John Bolton just get indicted a few weeks ago? Did I not cover that? So would that be the first indictment that will trigger the mass population awakening? First arrest will verify action and confirm future direction. You got Brennan on the hot seat. You got Bolton indicted after his house got raided. You got Comey back on the hot seat. You got who else was it? Yeah, James Comey got indicted. But I believe it was the P. Diddy indictment that triggered the population awakening, because that's when people started talking about the Satanism and the sex trafficking and all of that shit, and it became mainstream. I believe it was the Diddy arrest. Now let's go to 8. Slide 8. Less than 2 months ago, Charlie Kirk was assassinated with a bullet to his neck for being conservative and Christian. Tonight, Democrats in Virginia elected an attorney general who said he wants Republicans murdered, even their children. Once again, it's jarring to realize the bloodlust of the left. Their vicious, violent hatred of you isn't the fringe. It's a mainstream view of the entire Democratic Party, or Democrat Party, says Liz Wheeler. And I believe that. The perversion is a mainstream view of the Democrat Party. Political violence is a mainstream view of the Democrat Party. The anti-Americanism is a mainstream view of the Democratic Party. But whenever they get called on it in the media, and it's too obvious to try to downplay or deflect from, they just say, oh, these are fringe lunatics. This is the minority. This is not what we believe as a whole. But it's bullshit. It's exactly what they believe. It's not only what they believe, but it's also what they want to force us to believe. But unfortunately for them, that's not the way belief works. You can't force your beliefs on anybody. Now, where is that slide 9? If I even have one, because I'm starting to feel like I don't. All right, fuck it. Let's jump to 10. I don't have slide 10 either. Are you kidding me? All right, fuck it. Let's jump to 11 then. I must have miscounted. Oh, no, there's 10. Right there. So, wow, 21 states just refused to send their SNAP data to the USDA. Now, this is another reason why Trump is holding up the food stamp funds, because there's a lot of fraud going on in these Democratic states. And the list of the 21 states includes California, of course, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Hawaii, Illinois, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, Minnesota, Nevada, New Jersey, New Mexico, New York, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, Vermont, Virginia, Washington, and of course, DC. Are these not all blue states? Are these not all states with sanctuary cities? Well, that's why they don't want to turn over the data to the USDA, because the data demonstrates billions and billions of dollars of fraudulent payments to illegal aliens, mainly. And if they turn over the data and it's made, and Congress is made aware, and even Trump is made aware of the evidence of the fraud, then that will give him justification to keep the food stamps cut off. But I think Trump knows this already. We're just now hearing about it, but I think he knows about it already. And again, if there was no fraud happening or nothing nefarious going on, why hide the data? Why risk your good name and your credibility and your reputation by trying to hide the data? Because they're afraid, ladies and gentlemen. They are afraid. Because now they know we have an administration in office that isn't going to cover for them, that isn't going to give them offer them the protection of previous presidents, and they will actually be brought to justice. So now they're scared. Cardinal Robert Sarah, he's a bishop. As a bishop, it is my duty to warn the West the barbarians are already inside the city. And that is true, because we're dealing with the enemy inside the gate. This is why Q said infiltration instead of invasion. They didn't openly invade, they infiltrated. Hal Barnes, wasn't it you on the last show in the chat telling me that one of Trump's Secret Service agents tried to poison him? And he was an Antifa supporter? The enemy is inside the gates. And this is what Trump is dealing with. And this is why he has to be so cautious and tentative with everything that he does. And he has to be so meticulous to make sure everything goes off flawlessly, because the left has an army out there that's ready to move when the order is given. Department of Homeland Security, Florida man arrested for online posts threatening to kill ICE Nazis. And where do you think he got that rhetoric from? The Democratic Party, the mainstream media. And this guy looks like a pervert. He straight looks like a pervert. And we all know Small Hat looks like a damn cartoon character. But he looks like he's got hair inside of his palms. That is one furry bastard. But these are what I call the wind-up toys. So not only do they have the organized sleeper cells that are more professional and more precise and have more power and more access to do more damage, but they also got these wind-up toys on the street that watch way too much MSNBC, believe everything they see on TV, and they're being radicalized. Because this man, as much of a pervert as he looks like, he doesn't look like he's been in much trouble in his life. But because he believed the propaganda, he finds himself in handcuffs. So you want to talk about dangerous misinformation? Well, dangerous misinformation I would consider lies that get people locked up, fuck their lives up, or get them killed. That's dangerous misinformation. Bad information that will actually cause harm. But the whole ICE Nazis thing, that comes from the liberals. The left and the media, they're allied with. They're media allies. Okay, do we not have 13? We don't have a 13. That's crazy. That is fucking nuts. Oh, that's 13. There it is. Found it. The number is cut off. No wonder. So, holy shit. The FBI and IRS are teaming up to arrest people who funded the Los Angeles riots. It's actually happening. I voted for this. Now, make no mistake about it. When Trump had that meeting with the Joint Special Operations Command, all this was already planned because Trump and Homeland Security already knew that they were organized riots and they were people behind the scenes funding them. And the IRS is checking the financial records of these people to confirm that these are the targets. They're passing that information off to the FBI, and the FBI, with the help of special forces, are going out and they're making these night raids, and they're doing these night raids, and they're making these arrests. And remember what I kept telling y'all. They're going after the organizers and the funders. Well, there you have it. There's your confirmation. People who funded the Los Angeles riots, the funders, they're cutting off the money. Because if the funders are using their money to fuel these riots, well, if you cut off the money, the riots run out of fuel. That's how that works. So this, again, proves that I was right. So when I sit here and I theorize and I say they're probably doing this and they're going after the funders and they're doing this and they're doing that, like I told you guys, 9 out of 10 times, I'm right because I see what's happening. I can see the whole chessboard. I can see the moves and the counter moves, so I can call it exactly like I see it. And how long have I been telling you that the Trump administration is going after the organizers and funders of these riots? How long have I been telling you that? Now you believe me? I hope so. Be scary if you didn't. But I respect it. Just know your debate's not with me. It's with the FBI director, not me. Now, where is slide 14? Here we go. So, not only is the swamp being drained in that aspect, but the swamp is also being drained because these crooked politicians are all going down one by one. New York State is a very oppressive state when it comes to gun rights. They have some of the strictest gun laws in the country. But New York town official indicted for shooting lost DoorDash driver. Wife accused of deleting 17 Ring videos. So this New York town official, I presume he would be a councilman, a DoorDash driver got lost, tried to turn around in his driveway, and he came out with his gun and shot at him. And these are the same politicians that vote to take your gun rights away in New York, but they get to keep theirs. And this is how they behave, and this is how they act with their guns. So they assume everybody's as stupid as them. And these are the types of people in positions of power in New York State. And that explains why New York State is going down the tubes. And there's nothing anybody can do about it. All right, let's jump to 15. Massachusetts Democrat Governor Maura Healey's administration is in shambles after her top aide, Lamar Cook, was charged following a shocking raid at the governor's mansion where authorities uncovered 8 kilos of cocaine. What? Yes. Not only are these Democrats gun-wielding maniacs, but they're dope fiends and dope dealers. That's why they act so crazy and say all that crazy shit, because they be coked up half the time. That's why AOC has been in Congress for several years now. Her income has damn near quadrupled since she got into Congress, yet she hasn't gained a pound. AOC does not have a gym membership anywhere. How is she not getting fat over the years like every other woman naturally does? Because she's on that coke. That's why. Why do you think Kamala Harris talks through her nose like that? Because her nasal passages are swollen from all the coke she was sniffing off of Bill Clinton's dick. So when I tell you these motherfuckers are coke dealers, I'm not joking. These people are hardcore stone cold criminals. And they've been operating with impunity under every past administration that they served under. But now we got an administration that's looking into everybody, and the shit they're finding is wild. 8 kilos of cocaine. I don't know what the prices are nowadays, but back in the day, a kilo of cocaine on the low end was like 20 grand. On the high end, it was like 30 grand. So let's assume, let's settle in the middle. $25,000 a kilo. 8 of them? 8 of them. That's $200,000 worth of cocaine. And they probably started with 10, but sniffed 2. Who would have thought? The fucking governor? Well, she ain't the first governor to be involved in cocaine dealing. Bill Clinton, when he was governor of Arkansas, set up his cocaine importation operation. And then when he became president, he expanded it. This is why these Democrats are so buddy-buddy with the cartels. This is why they're so quick to defend the criminal illegals. This is why. Because these guys, these are the dope connects. Why do you think they're so mad at Trump about bombing the dope shipments? Because they profit from it too. Yeah, Barnes, I just peeped that. Yeah, the IRS would normally be closed during the government shutdown, but they're operational because now they're seen as essential. Because during the shutdown, only non-essential operations and agencies get shut down. But what's considered essential would be agencies and agents that are actively working criminal investigations and criminal cases. That would be your law enforcement wing. The judicial branch stays open because there's court cases where people's lives are hanging in the balance. The military remains functional and operational because, well, they're the military. And DOJ, FBI, Homeland Security, and everybody else got to come to work. The only government agency that really sees furloughs and shit like that during the shutdown is like TSA and civilian workers. But if the IRS, who would be considered a civilian workforce, if the IRS is staying open during the shutdown, then that would mean that they are involved in investigations, in active investigations. And I believe they have been since the days of Doge. So it looks to me like everybody's going down. Now, let me not forget, guys. If you haven't subscribed to the Citizen Man Backup channel, please make sure you do on YouTube. Excuse me. Also, follow me over on Rumble. If you haven't followed me on Rumble, get over to Rumble and help grow the Rumble page, all right? Also, last but not least, if you'd like to support the show, you can send in a kind donation via Cash App, PayPal, or Venmo using the tag scrolling across the screen in the banner below. The links that are pinned to the top of the chat in the black box where it says Citizen Man TV in yellow. Just click the yellow. The box opens up. All the links are there. You can also find those links in the description box of every video on YouTube and Rumble. And the red X through the PayPal logo, don't let that scare you. That's just to remind people that PayPal censors comments. So keep it surface level if you are going to use the PayPal, which is in fact active. And speaking of PayPal, let me give a big shout out to my good brother Lee14224. He says, have a great Friday show. I'm glad you said that because I forgot it was fucking Friday. Shout out to my brother Robert on the Cash App with the Q Challenge. The Q Challenge is $17. I hate to call out the amounts. I usually don't. But shout out to Robert for the Q Challenge. He says, where we go one, we go all. And because Q's number is 17, because Q is the 17th letter, the Q Challenge is either $1.70, $17, or $170. Or if you're balling like that, 1,700. But it's 17. Speaking of 17, let's find slide 16, shall we? Where you at? Oh, here we go. The drug bust, 5,000 arrested in Chicago raid. FBI and ICE arrest 5,000 in Chicago raid on Sinaloa and CJNG. 4 tons of fentanyl seized. Look at all that dope. Look at all that dope. That dope came from the boats that made it. So, although Operation Southcom is out there tearing shit up and stopping all these boats, they can't catch everybody. The ocean is a big place, and they can't catch everybody. So some of the boats are making it. But when the boats make it here, the buyers are usually already compromised from previous shipments and people telling. So it's very easy for the domestic forces here on the ground to bust these people. This is why the Democrats wanted the border open. This is why the Democrats are stomping for the illegals so much. It's not only about the voting and keeping them in power. It's about them bricks. It's about them bricks. This is why the Democrats are so cozy with the cartels, because they be getting them bricks. Breaking news. Now, this gives Tulsi Gabbard some points. I have to give Tulsi some credit here. DNI Tulsi Gabbard has exposed a chilling cartel-run baby trafficking operation. Pregnant women are lured with false promises, subjected to illegal C-sections, and their newborns are sold on the black market. This horrific scheme exploits vulnerable mothers and commodifies infants for profit. Gabbard's revelations underscore the urgent need for international cooperation to dismantle these ruthless criminal networks and protect innocent lives. And it's another reason why the Democrats love abortion. Not only is it a blood sacrifice ritual, but they get those fresh organs. And of course, the cartels are running the baby trafficking operations because the politicians who were running it before are no longer there. So now the cartels are doing commerce amongst themselves because they don't have their high-powered clients that they once had from previous administrations. Representative Jasmine Crockett caught hiding ownership in 25 companies, including pharma, fossil fuel, and marijuana firms from her disclosure forms. Dallas Express News says she failed to report them during her 2022 run and after taking office. So this woman lied on her disclosure forms to get into Congress. Why am I not surprised? Why am I not surprised? So not only has her district been redrawn off the map, so it doesn't exist anymore, which means she's out of Congress anyway. Now we have a situation where DOJ may very well investigate this woman because it sounds to me like there is actionable evidence there. And by actionable, I mean enough evidence to bring an indictment against that person. Take legal action against her. It's actionable evidence. And it couldn't be better. She gets kicked out of Congress and then she gets indicted and goes to jail. Nancy Pelosi just resigned from Congress. Did you guys hear about that? And Nancy Pelosi is also caught up in some financial crimes that she is soon to be held accountable for as well. So the grand finale is coming. I see the writing on the wall. I see it. Chicago residents are demanding Mayor Brandon Johnson drop his taxpayer-funded security detail if the city is as safe as he claims. It was revealed his protection includes 150 police officers, costing $22.5 million in salaries alone each year. What do you think? Well, he's a corrupt piece of shit. So that's why he would need 150 police officers for his security detail, because he flooded Chicago with illegal aliens, and the people of Chicago are not happy about it, and they don't like him. And if you know anything about Chicago, well, they be shooting shit up. So Brandon Johnson does not feel safe, and with good reason, because if you're that corrupt, you shouldn't feel safe. Remember what Q said. The streets will no longer be safe for them. Well, that's evident by Brandon Johnson's security detail. So on one hand, you got him telling people, gaslighting people, telling them the city's safe. And on the other hand, he's got security guards surrounding him probably 24 hours a day. So if the city's so safe, why don't you save the taxpayers some money? Why don't you get rid of your 150 police officer security detail, put them on the street so they could stop some of that gang violence? Or why don't you just get rid of them all together and use that $22.5 million to fund the illegals like you were trying to raise property taxes to do, Brandon Johnson? Shout out to Elsine. She says, love your content. Shout out to Elsine for that support on the Venmo. We got 3 supporters, y'all. We're at 3. 2 more get us to 5. 7 more get us to 10. So I think this is a reasonable ask, honestly. And again, if the city is safe as he says it is, it shouldn't be a problem, should it? And if it is, what's that tell you? That tells you that he's a goddamn liar. It's like the deep state found it. They want to destroy America so badly that they find the worst people to put in charge of America's biggest, largest, most prosperous cities in an effort to run them into the ground. And that's how you destroy America from within. If you destroy the economic centers, you're eventually going to destroy the entire economy. The entire economy. Because we got plenty of people running from New York down to Florida now. And during COVID, when that happened, people from these Democratic states started flooding into Florida. It caused a spike in the housing crisis, in the housing prices. And now it's almost impossible for the average working class American to live. At least in Orlando, that's what it's turned into. So creating policies in these big cities that's going to cause more people to flood down to these Republican states, well, it's going to do 2 things. It's going to bring a larger Democratic voting population to that state, which could at some point turn that state from red to blue. And it's going to drive up housing prices because there will be more demand for housing. Shout out to my sister Stacy for the Cash App. She says, New York ain't safe. Enjoy your night, period. Appreciate you, Stacy. Yeah, New York ain't safe. Chicago ain't. No Democratic city is safe. MAGA Voice says, the U.S. Supreme Court just gave a huge win to Trump's administration, forcing people to put their actual gender on their passports. No more catering to transgender illness. This is a massive win. Yes, no more catering to transgender illness, transgender mental illness. No more catering to that shit. Good. Good. Now get those fuckers out of the WNBA so some real women could play basketball. Maybe that's why the WNBA has been so abysmal and so disheartening. Because you're looking at a bunch of weak ass men play some soft ass bitch ass basketball. These fruit booty motherfuckers can't even dunk. That's why the WNBA sucks, because it's a bunch of dudes. At least if it was actual women, mostly, that were attractive, more people would watch that shit. There's a whole football league where women wear thongs and skirts that only cover like the top half of their asses. And that league gets more ticket sales than the WNBA. Like, they actually make their own money because they're actual women. And believe it or not, most women are just as perverted as men, so the women are going to go see them hoes too. And if the WNBA actually had real women playing basketball that were actually attractive, I think the WNBA would actually do better with their revenue stream. And they wouldn't have to depend so heavily on the NBA to fund them. There was another WNBA player that got exposed for being a man. And I think there's plenty more. Because they all look like men. Their voices sound like men. And I believe they're men. And you know what else I noticed too? There ain't a lot of interleague relationships, right? Because if there's a men's basketball league and a women's basketball league, you would think the men in the men's league and the women in the women's league would be crossing paths more often and would be hooking up. Like, you would be seeing NBA players dating WNBA players and shit like that, right? Like, I mean, it's like a perfect match. But you don't see that. You know why? Because them chicks is dudes. That's why. And the NBA dudes, they know it. Now, Angel Reese, I believe Angel Reese is a woman. Caitlin Clark, I believe Caitlin Clark is a woman. Just very unattractive, but she's a woman. But a lot of them other women, they some dudes. Yeah, and what's ironic, and this is the most ironic thing about the transgender shit, right? Because I watched the Minister Jab stream, and he was covering some news stories about these transgenders, these trans men, these trans women that are men pretending to be women, going into women's bathrooms and sexual. What up, Jason Smith? Jason Schmidt. Going into women's bathrooms and sexually assaulting women and little girls, whether it be by showing their genitalia openly to them, walking around naked, making sexually suggestive comments, even as far as touching and groping grown men. And what's funny is all these women are crying out about these men invading women's spaces. Mind you, the vast majority of these women were the same ones saying trans rights are women's rights. You guys remember that shit? When they were insisting that trans women are women, thus women's rights are trans rights. Remember that bullshit? So these women, in advocating for women's rights, just gave these perverted men more power. And now the perverted men who they gave that power to because the women were stupid, now those perverted men are taking advantage of the women all over again. So it's like the whole women's rights movement got usurped and undermined by a bunch of weak-ass men pretending to be women. Barnes got breaking news. Supreme Court says Trump cannot pay out full SNAP benefits, rebuking a lower court order. The judge, Ketanji Brown Jackson, made the ruling. What? Ketanji Brown Jackson actually did something right? Huh. Interesting. I think she made that ruling because she's scared, because she's seeing all her Democratic buddies going to jail, and she knows she's got dirt on her, because she wouldn't have been appointed by Biden if she didn't have dirt on her. So now, instead of the deep state using that dirt to control her, Trump is using that dirt to control her, thus the favorable ruling. Right, Jennifer. Trans women are not freaking women. And the women that were running around saying that shit have now subjected not only themselves, but other women to having to share their sports leagues, and their private spaces like the dressing rooms, locker rooms, bathrooms with these perverted men. And what's sad about it is all these people that were advocating for trans rights and shit, they're completely ignorant of the fact that these men are mentally ill. If you are a grown man and you believe that you are a woman, so much so that you take on the persona and the appearance of a woman, or at least try to, you are mentally ill. And you make your entire identity centered around the fact that you like dick. You are a mentally ill pervert. So from the time you see a man dressed like a woman, that's should be the biggest red flag that you are dealing with a potentially dangerous person. Now, a lot of them are normal people, and they're not crazy, and they're not, they don't show signs of mental illness to where they pose a threat to the public or a danger or perverts or anything like that. But just the mere fact that they choose to live their lives that way in such a grand delusion means that they're off their rocker. And you should stay away from them. This is why in the past they were relegated to the dark corners of society and were not welcomed in the mainstream. This is why the American Medical Association, I believe in 1963, deemed it to be a mental illness, because it is. These are mentally ill individuals. Deborah Ticey, what's going on? Shout out to Deborah Ticey. Deborah Ticey is actually a moderator on B Miles's channel. Shout out to Deborah Ticey. Shout out to my brother B Miles too, man. Oh, and you guys, just to let you know, B Miles just dropped his newest album, and I plan to help him promote it. He sent me a link to it, but that's going to be one of my links in my description box, and I'm going to help him promote that album. So I want you guys to, go support the brother. I'm glad you caught me live, Deborah Ticey. Now, this one's funny. This is hilarious. I think this shit is funny as hell. Hold on. Hold up, swole up. Let me do something real quick. Since we don't need the sound anymore. I'm going to share without sound. Here we go. Yep. There we go. Okay, what the hell? All right. Wait 1 bloody minute. Okay, there we go. That's what I wanted. All right. Deborah Ticey says, where you been, bro? I've been missing a lot of shows. I've been missing a whole lot of shows. What up, Positive Queen? Peace to you. I've been missing a lot of shows because the busy season and life's been getting in the way. But now that everything's slowing down again and we're going into winter, I'll be back and I'll be here more frequently. But anyway, let's get back to it. This is hilarious. American actress Angelina Jolie made a PR tour to Ukraine, but it didn't go well. During her visit to Kherson, her bodyguard was snatched and sent to the military conscription center. After hours, she had to personally go there to release him. What a clown show of a nation. So it's been rumored, and there's been videos going around of the Ukrainian military riding around in vans and snatching young men off the street to go throw them into war against Russia, because Russia's been kicking their ass, contrary to what the mainstream media has been telling you. And Angelina Jolie, that's supposed to be Angelina Jolie. I don't believe it is, but that's supposed to be her. She looks so cracked out. She looks so fucking cracked out. Angelina Jolie, her bodyguard, she went on a PR tour to Ukraine, I guess, to show the world how beautiful Ukraine is and that we should support Ukraine. And then Ukraine snatches up her bodyguard and tries to throw him on the front lines. That is fucking hilarious. The irony is priceless. The B Lady, what's going on, B Lady? She says, Citizen Man lurking as usual. I cannot find your video on Rumble about the quantum financial system. You mentioned on a show it was there. Yeah, B Lady. You know what? Let me do this for you real quick. Let me see if I can find it. Okay. So go to my Rumble page and go to content, and there should be a search bar there on the content page, and you type in the search bar the word quantum. And you should see it. Now, I have a link for it here, B Lady. And all you guys too. I just dropped a link in the chat, and that's the link to my Rumble video about the quantum financial system. So if you guys want to check it out, you got the link. All right, so I guess you can click the link, go over there, save the video, or share the link to yourself, copy and paste the link, whatever you got to do. But there's the link. I did mention that show, so there's the link. So now you can go watch it. The way you find the content on Rumble easier is when you go to my Rumble page and you go to the content page, you just type in one keyword. You type in one keyword from the title or pertaining to the topic, and you should be able to find a series of videos will pop up, and you should be able to find the right one. So there you go. All right, where were we? That's 21. Let's jump to 22. So those that we thought were our heroes were actually our enemies. There is supposed to be a picture of Martin Luther King, his wife, and I believe that's David Rockefeller and his wife. Yeah, B Lady, I think with that link that should save you a whole bunch of time. And it was also known that Martin Luther King was a communist. He was a pervert, and some even called him the P. Diddy of his time. Oh, thank you, Deborah Ticey. Appreciate the Cash App, Deborah. So we now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Holy cow. We have 5 supporters on the board, y'all. I need to get a soundboard so I could do the clap it up thing when we get to 5 supporters. Now we could do 5 more. So the door is open to 10 now. So let's read what this says right here, because my boy Gabriel Rich dropped this. He says, what in the name of I Have a Dream is this? Martin Luther King and Coretta in the company of Jacob Rothschild. Sorry, Jacob Rothschild and his wife. How does this happen? Probably because MLK wasn't what we were told he was. After all, his real name was Michael King Jr. So here you have the agent being put in place to mislead black people because integration destroyed the black economy. The fake name and the whole, black leader bullshit. Isn't that almost the same thing they did with Barack Obama? Put him in there, crowned him as the black leader under a fake name. But instead of having a wife, he actually had a husband pretending to be a wife. What if I told you the civil rights movement was a farce in much the same way the March on Washington was? What if I told you that the government had their hands on MLK Sr. starting in the 1940s and that MLK Jr. was groomed for his role as being a civil rights leader? What if I told you that proof of King walking off the Boule Reservation in 1966 was his brother drowning in 1969 and his mother being assassinated in 1971 in church? And this is what I tell people, right? Martin Luther King should still have some respect from us as a historical figure. Even though we know that he was a communist, we know that he started out serving the establishment that did not have black people's best interest at heart. We also know that they actually really did kill him. So if he was serving the establishment, why would they have killed him? Because at some point he decided not to. That's why they had to get rid of him, because this same establishment had built him up to be a hero, popularized him as a leader, and put the backing behind his movement. So they made him. And if they make you, you cannot turn your back on them. So they made him. He, I guess, somewhere in his conscience, he couldn't live with himself anymore, or he saw the results of the deception that he was set up to push, and he didn't like it. And he said something about it. He said, "I led my people into a burning house." And they couldn't afford to have him out there saying the opposite of what he was already saying. So they killed him. So I owe him that. I feel like we all owe him that much respect, that at least at the end, he tried to do right, but never really had the chance to correct the problem that he had created through that pseudo civil rights movement, because they killed him before he could. Shout out to Cherokee for the Cash App. She says, also sent to Citizen Man. Yeah, I do have another Cash App. It's Cash App Citizen Man. So, Cherokee, did you hit me twice? Is that what you're telling me? Do I have to go to Cash App and change my profile to see that? I don't even know now. I don't even know no more. Let me see. Let me find out I got money sitting over here in this Cash App, and I ain't even checked the shit. Yeah, damn, I got $15 in that motherfucker. Shout out to my sister Deborah from back in September. She says, thanks for all the good information. Appreciate that, Sister Deborah. And then my sister Cherokee, she says, let's make the goal. Appreciate you, Cherokee. So we're at 6. I had $15 whole in my Citizen Man Cash App. I'm gonna start using both Cash Apps. $, Jaden Ben, and $, Citizen Man. I gotta tag that one on the support links. Shout out to y'all, man. Appreciate y'all. So we're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we have 7 donations, but 6 donors, because my sister Cherokee, She hit me twice, but she's one person, so that's one donor. I want 10 donors, so we need 4 more donors. I hate to sound like Umar. I just want to be clear about what the plan is and how to reach this goal. So anyway, as much as we could criticize Dr. King, and a lot of the criticisms are true and they do stem from truth, eyewitness statements, etc., we still should give him a little bit of respect because he went out on the good foot. You know what I'm saying? When they took him out because he went against them. And you got to love it. You got to love it. Yeah, Cherokee. I have 2 Cash Apps because all the years I've been on YouTube and I've been using Cash App, it was always $, my first name, my last name, right? And then this year, Cash App sends me I think it's like an email or something. And they say, oh, because you collect money for services, you have to create a business account or you won't be able to use $, Jaden Ben anymore. So naturally, I created the business account. So $, Citizen Man is actually my business Cash App account. And $, Jaden Ben is my personal Cash App account. But I never really cared for the difference because it's Cash App. Right, Armaleth. Malcolm was starting to think like, what up, Prince Arcane? What's good, brother? Yeah. Cash App they kind of put the screws to me to make me do that, but it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. So $ Citizen Man also works too, if you guys want to support me there too. And Sister Deborah probably hit the $ Citizen Man because she probably went into Cash App and searched Citizen Man up and hit it. I hope there ain't no Citizen Man clone accounts. Did you know that's a scam that they do now? Where, and I shouldn't be putting this out there and giving the trolls ideas, but if you need to make some quick cash without working hard, here's what some scammers would do. And apparently it's perfectly legal. They would take a picture of a big YouTuber and they would create a Cash App account with their banking information, but that YouTuber's name. So, like, let's say, for instance, Hassan Campbell's got his Cash App, right? A lot of people have done this to him, and I hear him talk about it a lot, so I can use him as an example. His Cash App, I believe, is just $ Hassan Campbell, right? But what a scammer would do is they would put the picture of him in the icon, and then they would do $ Hassan _ Campbell or Hassan Campbell with some special characters or something in it, just to make it closely resemble Hassan Campbell's actual Cash App. Or it would be Hassan.Campbell or something silly like that, right? And unsuspecting folks who want to donate. No, not you, Deborah Ticey. Another Deborah. It's another Deborah on the Cash App. Sorry, Deborah Ticey. I should have been specific. It wasn't you that I was talking about. It was, let me see the last name. I'm going to check the last name so that way we don't have this mix up. Deborah Porter is her name. Not Deborah Ticey, but Deborah Porter. Yeah, there's too many Deborahs, right? But anyway, so yeah, they would make basically a clone account, and some unsuspecting supporter of Hassan that wants to donate to Hassan, they would go to their Cash App, type in $ Hassan, and then $ Hassan Campbell, and then Hassan _ Campbell would pop up, or Hassan.Campbell would pop up, or Hassan Campbell _ would pop up, and they would click one of those clone accounts, donate to that one, never get their shout out from Hassan, but they just put 10, 20, $50 in the scammer's hands. So I always thought that shit was kind of crazy. Here's another Cash App scam that they do. And I think they got me like that, but Tommy said they got him too. What they would do is they would send you an amount of money, or at least make it look like they sent you an amount of money. And then they would send you a request to request it back and say they sent it to the wrong person. And then you would send the money back. But then it turns out that the money you sent back came directly out of your bank account and they got your money and they never really sent you shit in the first place. So they'll send you some sort of false alert on Cash App like they sent you money, but they didn't. I don't know how they do that. But one time I had $35 show up on my Cash App. I thought it was somebody donating to the show. The next day, they send a request for the $35 back. I send them the $35 back. It came out of my account, but I had already cashed that $35 out of my Cash App. So they got the exact money back that they sent me. So I don't think I got scammed. But apparently that's a scam. And they say when you get money like that and people say it's the wrong person, don't send it back. So I don't know how to feel about that, because I feel like if I send my money to the wrong person, I would like for them to send it back to me. Because I ain't no fucking scammer. That was a genuine mistake. And I'm sure there's other people out there that make that genuine mistake. So, I would kind of feel bad keeping the money. So I guess it's a play on your good conscience too. But anyway, so we had these elections that just passed and a bunch of Democrats got put in power, right? But check this out. They pulled a Katie Hobbs in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Ohio. Voting machines failed in GOP districts. Poll pads froze. Bomb threats shuttered precincts in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Ohio, and voters were blocked, all at the exact moment. How's that for a free and fair election? You see? So now they can't use the fake ballots anymore. They can't flip the votes in the voting machines anymore. They can't use the multiple voters, the multiple votes by the same voter. They can't use the illegals to vote anymore. So what are they doing now? Just blocking Republicans from being able to vote. You can't flip the machines, so shut them down. You can't stop the Republicans from showing up to the precinct, shut the precinct down. And once election day passes and they can't vote and they can't cast their ballots anymore, oh, well, it's unfortunate the Democrat wins the election. So this is like the new form of election rigging that they're engaging in. And it's a lot more obvious. And I believe that people are going to go to jail behind this shit. And I believe that something similar happened in Virginia, because I have a tally of the numbers from the Virginia governor's race with Winsome Sears against that white lady Spanberger, who got endorsed by Obama and the NAACP. But for some reason, they didn't endorse the black woman, because that's the thing about these pro-black, these so-called pro-black liberals. They would side with a white liberal before they side with a black conservative, but they're supposed to be black first. This is why it's always been so difficult for me, and I'm sure for a lot of you guys out there, to really get down with the whole pro-black, black first, the white man's the devil movement. Because when you really look at it, once you disagree with these people, or you have a difference of opinion from these people, they show you how much they hate you. They really do. They really fucking do. And it's mind-blowing, because you would think, wait a minute, you're supposed to be for black people, and I'm black. Why are you treating me like this? But it's not about black people. It's about Democrats. That's what it's about. So the 2021 voter turnout, Youngkin, I believe his name is Greg Youngkin. Youngkin was the Republican. McAuliffe was the Democrat. Youngkin got 1.6, maybe rounded up, 1.7 million votes. McAuliffe got 1.6 million votes. So he won by 100,000 votes, the governorship of the state of Virginia. 2025, Winsome Sears, almost all the precincts, 1.2 million votes, and Spanberger got less than McAuliffe, which is by 1.6 million votes. just under 1.6 million votes, but somehow beat out Winsome Sears by over 400,000, by about 400,000 votes, just about. So 472,664 Virginia Republicans left Winsome Earl Sears hanging. Morons. So either they didn't turn out to vote, or what happened in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Ohio happened to them. Precincts shut down, voting machines shut down. So it looks to me like it was a blocking of Republican votes that led to such a disparity. Either that, or Winsome Sears torpedoed her own campaign by speaking bad about Trump when it was when the media was making it seem cool to go against Trump. Because I remember covering a story where she said Trump is dangerous or an extremist or a radical or some shit, some stupid shit like that. Not only that, she's a tether, in the words of Minister Jack. A tether. She's a tether. She's not American. She's a Jamaican. If it was an American black woman, she probably would have had a better chance. Because we're in the time of America first. So it's very difficult if you are going to be a foreigner running for office. It's very difficult to be a foreigner with such a heavy foreign accent. It just don't look right. It just don't sit right with many Americans. That could be the reason. Let's say none of the weird shit that happened in Pennsylvania, Jersey, and Ohio happened in Virginia, and it really was Republican voters just not showing up and voting for Winsome Sears. I believe that could be it. The whole putting a foreigner in a position of power, tether babble, right? Putting a foreigner in a position of power just doesn't sit right. Just didn't sit right in their minds, because these are America first patriots. And that I can understand, because I wasn't born in the United States, but I grew up in the United States. I came to the United States. I was brought here by my parents, me, my brother, and my sister, when we were very little children. Went to elementary, middle school, high school, college, tech school, all that shit here in the United States. My kids born here in the United States. So I consider myself an American. When I go back to Guyana, which is my home country where I was born, I get called Yankee boy. I don't know shit about the culture over there. I don't know nothing about that shit. I'm a tourist just like the white folks. So I consider myself American. But out of respect for born Americans, I don't ever want to run for office or hold any political office in this country. I'd be happy to work with a quote unquote FBA candidate who would want to run for office, because my knowledge on politics is very extensive. So I would be a great asset to the campaign and to the administration if I ever were to get that chance. But as far as me stepping up and asking Americans to vote for me and put me in power, I would never do that. I would never do that, because I respect this country too much. What I would like to do is back candidates who would be considered quote unquote FBA, and I use that term very loosely, born Americans with American lineage and American heritage who would actually represent American people. I would work with that person and help them perfect and sharpen their political skills and put them in a position of power. I don't want to be the king. I'd rather be the kingmaker. You feel me? Yeah, my lineage is the Americas. And I don't do the whole tether FBA thing, and I think it's a load of crap. Because on Tyreek's FBA website, FBA is defined as African slaves that were brought here and mixed with the native Indians. So even if you claim FBA, but you know that your ancestry only goes back to Native Americans or indigenous Americans and not Africa, if you adopt the FBA label, you're adopting an FBA, you're adopting a label that's defined as having African heritage. So Tariq Nasheed is spinning you right back into the back to Africa, out of Africa theory. He's spinning you right back into you're black, so you're African. That's what he's doing, while pretending that he's not. I mean, could you be any more Jewy? But I also understand that a lot of people who adopt that label, while not considering or not knowing what the official definition is of that term, and so they assign their own definition to it, kind of redefining the term. You know, I don't necessarily agree with that. I believe words have meaning, and those meanings are important because that's what makes those words significant in the vernacular, the meaning that it carries. And if we could just arbitrarily change the meanings of words, then what's the language mean? It doesn't mean anything. Prince Arcade says Tariq smells like CIA. Man, don't get me started on what I think Tariq smells like. Okay. All right, I'll do it. I think Tariq smells like open butthole and used condoms. I believe Tariq's farts smell like latex and they sound like the letter H. I ain't never seen a grown man that greased up and zesty all at the same time. Like Tariq Nasheed. And I don't understand how these straight, free-thinking black men, shout out to Minister Jap for that terminology, straight, free-thinking black men can actually take a guy like Tariq Nasheed seriously, as sweet as he is. Like, I don't want to be led by a leg crosser. I don't want to be led by a dude that can't put bass in his farts. Like, you ain't no man. Fart sound like a powder puff, just fart sound like your last breath and shit. Just open air passage. The fuck? Fucking Tariq Nasheed. I can't watch more than 5 minutes of that dude with the lip smacking. That lip smacking, pursing the lips and smacking the lips kills me. And I swear, every time I see brothers like these masculine men that believe in family and, you know what I'm saying, and love women and aren't gay, you know, every time I see them like praising Tariq Nasheed, I scratch my head. I just can't understand it. And some people would argue and say, but he's got a wife and kids. Have you seen Hollywood? You know, there's a label for that. It's called a lavender marriage. You can actually go look this up. It's real terminology. Lavender marriage. And a lavender marriage is when one or both partners in the marriage are actually gay. And this was a thing that started in Hollywood back in the day, because what would happen was the fans, because people were a lot more, I guess, homophobic back then, the fans would actually they would stop supporting that person, that actor, if they found out they were gay. So they would take these zestophile men and marry them off to women. And they would take these lesbian women and marry them off to men. And sometimes it'd be a lesbian woman married to a gay man, or straight man married to a lesbian woman, or a straight woman married to a gay man, you know, some shit like that. And the marriages rarely ever lasted. Some of them did, but most of them didn't. And yeah, beards, exactly. And I believe that Tariq Nasheed's situation is one of those. Not only that, but his government name is what was it again? Not Marcus Rogers. That's that Christian dude. Marcus Sanders. His government name is Marcus Sanders. And if you examine his life story, he moved from, I believe it was Detroit to LA. And around that same time in LA, there was a Marcus Sanders, or it was it Detroit or LA? I can't remember. One of them cities. There was a Marcus Sanders that had the exact same life story as Tariq Nasheed, pretty much, but went to prison for murder. He shot a black man in the head because they were selling dope together, and the man got caught, and he was going to snitch on Marcus Sanders, and Marcus Sanders blew the man brains out. I actually covered the whole case file on one of these previous shows, and I believe that Marcus Sanders is Tariq Nasheed, because he has kids with his current wife, but he has one daughter that's older, and the Marcus Sanders mentioned in that court case, in that murder case, actually had a young daughter at the time whose age would be consistent with Tariq Nasheed's oldest child. So, the one he tries to hide. So, I believe that Tariq Nasheed was a murderer. He went to federal prison. He got zestified in federal prison, and then he got let out because he was an enthusiastic speaker and could garner a lot of support, and he was made an agent and turned loose to mislead black people. But those are just my thoughts. But anyway, I would never run for office, but I would definitely support a born American candidate to run for office. And I believe nobody should be in office in America, in public office, unless they are. Matter of fact, I don't believe anybody that was not born in this country should have a chance to be in government at any capacity. I was talking about Tariq Nasheed, Deborah. His government name is Marcus Sanders, and there's a murder case of a Marcus Sanders that is that murdered a black man. And not only that, did you know that Tariq Nasheed was featured in a P. Diddy video? Oh, yeah. Yeah. He's Diddyfied. I think that's where the zest came from. Diddy put that zest all up in him. But anyway, I don't believe that foreign-born, because whenever I watch those police body cam videos, for example, and it's an American, yeah, I got a whole stream on it. I should drop the link to that shit too. And whenever I see these police body cam videos and the suspect is an American with an American accent and the cop is like some foreigner with a weird accent or a Hispanic that talks like Antonio Banderas, it rubs me the wrong way. It rubs me the wrong way because you cannot go to any other country except the UK probably, or maybe Canada, and find born citizens of that country being policed by motherfuckers with American accents. You won't see it. My honest opinion about the shutdown. I'll get to that. I was just harping on. Right. If he was in a Diddy video, he definitely was zesty. Yes, he is zesty. You can tell. You can see it all in his mannerisms and his demeanor. There's nothing about that man that screams, "I get pussy." There's nothing about him that says that. Nothing. Like, you know how some dudes, you could just look at him and tell, he got some hoes on the team. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's some dudes that just got that swag. They may not necessarily have a bunch of women that they sleeping around with, but you can tell a man's man, a masculine man who would have the capacity or the capability to do that because he's not a bitch. And then there's other men that it just makes more sense to see him holding hands with a man because they act so much like a female. And maybe if Tariq Nasheed wasn't so zesty, I could take him more seriously. But it's really, really hard to get past the zest for me. Like it's irritating. It's fucking irritating. It's like he keeps smacking his lips like he's got semen between his teeth or something. It's crazy. Prince Arcane says, lots of famous or notorious ends came out of the California prison system. See, mind control, black assassins. Thank you for that, Prince Arcane. I might have to do a one-on-one with you one day because you send me a lot of shit and I'll be looking at that shit and I'll be like, God damn, boy. I wish I knew this. But yeah, I believe part of what tanked Winsome Sears' career or Winsome Sears' chances of being governor, so much so that the white liberal got elected, is because She said some negative things about Trump a few months back, or maybe last year or something like that. And Americans just it's just a hard pill to swallow to have somebody with a foreign accent in a high position of power running your country, running your state. It's just not a good look. They should have picked an American black woman rather than Winsome Sears, and just have Winsome Sears endorse her. The endorsement probably would have meant more than the run. Because, again, it's a sign of respect. It's a sign of respect. You know what I mean? Yeah, burger, Span Burger. Yep, exactly, burger. Yeah, Ben knew that. You guys know that. I didn't think I needed to mention that, but I appreciate you mentioning it for those who might have slipped by them. Take a second look. So, Zohran Mamdani, speaking of foreigners, Zohran Mamdani has been elected mayor of New York. Now, there's videos all over social media now of liberals saying they're going to vote multiple times for Mamdani, right? Not only that, but the foreigners voted in Mamdani because New York does not have voter ID. Anybody can show up and vote. And Mamdani now admits he won't be able to fund his socialist plans. He had said he'd tax billionaires, but now he's faced with Governor Hochul saying she won't do that. So how will Mamdani fund socialism without raising taxes? He won't. He's a total fraud, as is every Democrat. Yes, Winsome Sears is a naturalized citizen. She's not a born citizen. She's a naturalized citizen, just like myself. I'm a naturalized citizen. Right? But the funny thing about Mamdani, though, is now it turns out that on Mamdani's application for citizenship, he lied. He put some false information on his citizenship application. And now the Trump administration is eyeing the possibility, get this, of revoking his citizenship and deporting his ass. So let's see where that goes. But I don't think it's going to happen right away. I think Trump is going to let him fuck up New York a little bit more, and then he's going to deport his ass. But let's see how that turns out. I predicted for weeks we would lose every race tonight because blue states are rigged. The people are brainwashed, self-hating morons, and dependent welfare queens, and the illegals are voting by millions with mail-in ballots. We cannot win blue state elections until stupid, clueless, cowardly GOP Congress passes voter ID and proof of citizenship for federal elections, period. We were never going to win in Virginia or New Jersey, and Mamdani was always going to win in New York City because it's now a foreign country. GOP Congress is a bunch of rhino losers who do nothing. Well, I wouldn't use such harsh language about the GOP Congress, but I would say that they are pretty cowardly and they should do a hell of a lot more than what they're actually doing, for sure. And they could do a hell of a lot more. But again, they need that APAC money, so they're selling the country out. Okay, so we're supposed to be at 27. So let's go to 27. Where the fuck is 27? There we go. Native New Yorkers rejected Mamdani, while people living in New York less than 5 years overwhelmingly voted for Mamdani. Trump brought peace to the world, but now we're under attack by Mamdani and Qatar. Like, if you agree. Well, I would say it's the deep state within Qatar. I wouldn't say it's Qatar itself. But check this out. Was born in New York City, 45%. let's see. How long have you lived in New York City? So this is the percentage of the votes that Mamdani got. So people that were born in New York City, they voted at 38. No, these are the votes. Wait. Okay. Okay, this is it. This is it in parentheses right here. So I was born in New York City, 45%. 10 years, but not born here, 37%. 5 to 10 years, 8%. Less than 5 years, 7%. But 85% of those people who lived in New York less than 5 years voted for Mamdani. 79% of the people who lived in New York for 5 to 10 years voted for Mamdani. 54% of people lived in New York for 10 plus years but not born there. 54% of them voted for Mamdani. And people who were born in New York City, 38% of native-born New Yorkers voted for Mamdani. So Mamdani got the overwhelming majority of the foreigners' votes. This is why the sanctuary city policies were so important, and this is why the Democrats, another reason why, aside from the dope that they're getting, another reason why the Democrats are fighting so vehemently against the ICE raids. And they're making these illegals, they're making these illegals, they're making them out to be poor little victims because they know you bring in the foreign population and they will vote for the foreigner almost every time. So if you want to use foreigners to infiltrate the U.S. government at every level, you flood these cities with foreigners and then you have them vote for one of their own. How do you think Ilhan Omar got to Congress? The Somalis took over Minneapolis and St. Paul. And then they turned out in droves to vote for her. Deborah says, is New York really flooded? I don't know, Deborah. I haven't heard anything about that. I haven't heard anything about that at all. So this is how full of shit Mamdani is. Typical Democrat, right? The dream of every Muslim is simply to be treated the same as any other New Yorker. And yet for too long, we have been told to ask for less than that and endure hatred and bigotry in the shadows. No more. So he's painting the Muslims out to be poor little victims, right? Mind you, Muslims in New York come a dime a dozen. Nobody bothers them. The Muslims even have their own Sharia patrol, similar to what the Jews have, and they ride around in cars that look like NYPD cars. So who's mistreating the Muslims? You see? He's playing the victimhood card because the victimhood card affords you a chance to seek supremacy. This is what the small hats did to gain supremacy. Pretend to be the victims so you shut down any criticism against what your group is doing. And Mamdani is playing the victimhood card in order to boost or bolster his power. Lisa Cusack says, my father grew up Christian in a Muslim country. Both sides of his family had their property confiscated. They paid a special tax for being non-Muslim. Remember Mamdani said he wanted to raise taxes on white people? Yeah. Many jobs were not available to them, certainly in the government. And they lived under frequent threats of government-sanctioned mob violence. None of this is done to Muslims in America, and everybody knows it. Andrew P. says, what country are you from? Well, I kind of said it earlier. South America, Guyana, South America. That's where I was born. And he says, also, rural schools and hospitals are dependent on H-1B visas. They're not dependent on H-1B visas. They only utilize the H-1B visas because those guys work for less. But you get rid of the H-1B visas and you force these schools and hospitals to hire American, and they would have to pay more, but they would hire American because the workers are there. Otherwise, we wouldn't even have an unemployment rate. If it wasn't for all these foreigners in our fucking country with these H-1B visas, we wouldn't even have unemployment. Unemployment wouldn't be a thing. Also, AI and automation engineers need the visas or we will fall behind. Why isn't Department of Education dismantled? Actually, it is dismantled, and the state department, the state's own departments of education are running the show, but they're basically doing the same thing the Federal Department of Education was doing. So it seems as if the Federal Department of Education still exists because the same programs are being implemented. AI and automation engineers need the visas. Well, I believe that statement would imply, Andrew, that only foreigners know about automation engineering and AI, which is not true. Again, these companies want to hire foreigners because foreigners work for cheap. But there are plenty of Americans with the skills and the qualifications to do those jobs. They're just not getting the jobs because they're demanding higher pay. America is a self-sustaining country. We just haven't had a chance to run it ourselves and sustain it ourselves, at least not in recent decades. So it's hard to picture an America that's ran solely by Americans, because for most of us, most of our lives, we haven't seen it. We don't know what that looks like. But I think it'll be better than what we're seeing now. That's for damn sure. Now, people keep saying Mom Donnie is a Jew-hating Muslim and this and that and blah, blah, blah. Don't be fooled. New York is ran by these guys. That's the Grand Poobah right there with the big old furry hat. New York is ran by these dudes. And look at Mom Donnie sitting at the table with him with his yarmulke on. Some Jew-hating Muslim that is. There he is again with none other than Alex Soros, George Soros' son. So proud to be a New Yorker. The American dream continues. Congrats, Mayor Zoran. You see him hugged up with Soros, you know that shit is trouble. You know it's trouble. That just screams danger. But New York City, you're in trouble now. I'll tell you that. I'll tell you that. You guys fucked up. There he is again with the small hats. Oh, no, that's Cuomo with the small hats. There's Zoran with the small hat. Zoran with Soros. Zoran with the small hat again. Zoran with the small hat. Zoran with the small hats. Zoran with the furry perverts. And you know what got him elected? I'm going to tell you what got him elected. All the other mayoral candidates, when asked what was the first thing they were going to do as mayor of New York City, they said they were going to go to Israel. Zoran said, I'm going to stay here in New York and attend to the affairs of New York. That's what won him the election. Nobody cared about who he was, where he came from, and what his actual agenda was, or all that socialism that he was lying about. Nobody cared about that. All they cared about was he wasn't going to Israel. That's what got him to win. But as far as him being a Jew hater, a lot of people on social media are saying that he's not. He's not. He's a puppet. He's not a Jew hater. He's a small hat puppet. That's what he is. He's an establishment puppet, posing as one thing on the outside or in public, and behind closed doors, he's kissing the ring. That's all that is. That's all the fuck that is. So New York, you voted for this. Just remember, you voted for this. So when shit starts going left, just know this was your decision. And that's the crazy thing about the Democratic voters. They keep voting for these fucking idiots. They keep voting for these fucking idiots. And then when these idiots start fucking shit up, they never put two and two together that, hey, I voted for a fucking idiot. And that's that you know what that speaks to? That effeminate lack of accountability that a lot of these liberals have, men and women. They don't look at themselves as the causes of the problem, because the politicians they elect that create these problems in order to seize more power have them convinced that it's the opposition that's the source of this problem. So keep voting for me. And somehow it works. These people genuinely believe that they're voting for the good guy. So here's a little update from CNN about the plane crash in Louisville. The recent UPS plane crash near Louisville Airport is not being treated as an act of terrorism. Well, not at the current moment, it isn't. Primarily in preliminary indications and expert analysis point to a severe engine issue during takeoff as a potential cause. Right. And it's not being treated as an act of terrorism, because if they treat it as an act of terrorism, well, wouldn't that tip off the other terrorists working in the airlines whose job it is to sabotage planes? Right? It's just like if you got a serial killer running around your city and bodies keep turning up. Yeah, you might report on discovering the body, but then you'll be a little tight-lipped about whether there was foul play involved or not, because you don't want to tip off the public that you know there's a serial killer running around. Otherwise, that serial killer might leave and go somewhere else and keep killing, which means your public announcement of this being a serial killer murder investigation might lead to more people getting murdered. So you might actually not only compromise your investigation, but endanger the public at the same time. So just the fact that it's not being treated as an act of terrorism does not mean it's not an act of terrorism. And it also does not mean that that statement is absolutely true. When the DEA is investigating a drug organization, they don't publicly announce they're investigating the drug organization. They don't publicly announce that they were investigating the drug organization until the investigation is concluded and arrests are made. But until that point, there is no drug investigation, because you can't let the people you're investigating know that you're investigating. It's that simple. But anyway, the incident, which occurred on Tuesday, November 4th, 2025, is under investigation by the National Transportation Safety Board and the Federal Aviation Administration. An NTSB team arrived on Wednesday to lead the probe into the cause of the catastrophic accident. Key details from initial reports indicate video footage appears to show the MD-11 cargo jet struggling to gain altitude with its left engine on fire during the takeoff roll. Aviation experts have suggested the fire was much too big for a typical engine fire, and that investigators would look for evidence of an uncontained engine failure, which could cause catastrophic damage to the engine, fuel lines, and other parts of the aircraft structure. You see? So they're saying it's not being investigated as an act of terrorism, but now they're telling you that the evidence suggests that this is some sort of unusual case. The fire is much too big for a typical engine fire. Well, could it be an incendiary device that set off the fire? Could it be sabotage of the engine that set off the fire? Because a typical engine fire would be started or ignited by a genuine parts failure, right? Fuel line rupturing, fuel injector, fuel valve leaking, something along those lines. But if it's much too big for a typical engine fire, that means something might have ignited that fire. The plane was fully fueled for a long flight to Honolulu, and the massive fire was a result of the large amount of jet fuel on board. Well, if this was a long flight overseas, right? Even though Hawaii is a U.S. territory, it's a U.S. territory on a separate land. I can't say foreign because it's U.S., but it's a separate land. That plane would be prime target for sabotage because they got a fully loaded fuel tank. There was no hazardous cargo on the plane that would cause an environmental issue or suggest a malicious cause. All current information points towards an aviation accident with no mention of terrorism in any official statements from authorities like the NTSB, FAA, Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear, or Louisville Mayor Craig Greenberg. So they're saying that it ain't no act of terrorism, but I don't believe that shit. I don't believe that shit at all. I believe it was an act of terrorism. They know it was an act of terrorism, but they're actively investigating, hence all the delays, and they can't afford to tip off the potential terrorists. So they have to say it's not an act of terrorism and publicly pretend as if it's just an accident, nothing to see here. I personally do not believe for 1 second that it was an accident. I do not. Because I've seen plane crashes that happened accidentally before, but I've never seen mass widespread delays before that plane crash happened. That's something to take note of. It's all connected. So they are fighting. They are fighting, but you are ready because you can see what's happening and know what it is. So even though the government is saying it ain't an act of terrorism, because we've been, reading the tea leaves, so to speak. I think that's the phrase. And we've been following what's been going on. We've been studying the enemy tactics. We've been studying the patriot tactics of how they thwart the enemy. We can look at what's happening with the delays and look at this plane crash and put 2 and 2 together ourselves. So regardless of what the government says, because we're expert researchers, right? We don't sit around and wait for the government to give us the narrative. We examine the evidence ourselves and theorize about our own narrative, which almost always ends up being closer to the truth than the bullshit the government told us. And from my examination, that was an act of terrorism. And there's probably more slated to happen. Now, aside from them fighting kinetically with domestic acts of terrorism, they're also continuing to fight with the information war and the false narratives. ICE, Mike Quigley, a Democrat, of course, says ICE isn't going after the worst of the worst. This morning, they took a preschool teacher without a warrant in front of children in my district. Well, Homeland Security responds and says, Congressman, you are deliberately misrepresenting the facts. In other words, you're lying. You lying sack of shit. ICE law enforcement did not target a daycare and were only at this location because the female illegal alien fled inside. You see how they spin the narrative? That's why they always only show you half of the footage when it appears as if the criminal is a victim, is being victimized, when in fact that criminal is having justice brought upon them. They love spinning narratives, and I love that Homeland Security actually responded to this clown and that bullshit narrative he tried to put out, because I've seen it on the fake news where they were characterizing this as if ICE was targeting the daycare. So it is a fake narrative that's being put out, and they're trying to push it, but because Homeland Security is pushing back, it ain't going nowhere. And mind you, only the Democrats and their brain dead supporters are in defense of the illegals. Most other Americans that are just average Americans that want to just make a living and support their families, they don't want the fucking illegals here. So they're not going to protest ICE. In fact, they were begging for ICE to come in and get rid of these people for years. So it's only the so-called activists, the paid actorivists, and the politicians and the political organizations that are stumping for the illegals. The average American, whether black, white, or whatever, even the black Trump haters are like, you know what? I don't like Trump. I can't stand him. But I'm glad he's getting these fucking illegals out of here. Because flooding the country with a foreign population is bad for the native population. So removing that foreign population opens up access to more resources for the native population, more housing, more jobs, etc. I heard right now in New York City, the MTA, I guess that's the Metropolitan Transportation Association or whatever the hell, they are hiring plumbers. You don't even have to be a licensed plumber. You could be like apprentice level plumber where you just take an exam and you get the job. They're hiring plumbers and the jobs are paying like $100 an hour. And you can make up to $1,000 or more a day. Some guys are out there making $5,000-$6,000 a week. I'm actually thinking about going up there for the winter, to tell you the truth. But you know why all these jobs are opening up? Because the illegal aliens and the foreigners who were holding those jobs are being deported. So those job openings are now available to Americans. But yeah, I'd totally go up to New York and spend 6 months working there as a plumber doing that job. And I wouldn't spend a dime except pay my rent back home. And I stack all my bread and come back home, come back in that black on black. Straight up. Ain't no point in staying at home struggling. Might as well be out making that bread. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the same situation in other cities too. Now, here's the last little tidbit for the night. I appreciate you guys being here. We got 6 supporters on the board, guys. Don't forget, we got 6 supporters on the board. 4 more could get us would get us to 10. So if you guys would be so kind as to hit the Cash App, PayPal, or Venmo, that would be great. That will be great. 4 more people. We got 76 watching on YouTube. We got 29 watching on Rumble. And guys, please hit that thumbs up on Rumble. We got 29 watching on Rumble, 76 on YouTube. Deborah says, I just bought a black on black. There you go. There you go. So I need y'all to hit the Cash App so I can get my black on black. Man, I mean, my truck is black on black, but it used to be fresh years ago, but it's a work truck now. It's kind of just slightly hooptified. It looks nice when I wash it, but I barely ever wash it because it's a work truck, so it fucking gets dirty every day. But anyway, trying to get that Escalade, baby. Trying to get that Escalade. Nothing fancy, just like a 2021, 22 model. I like those. Plus, I need something big. Got 5 kids, man. I need something big. Now, this is one of those false narratives that the media was trying to push. And they were using their talking heads on social media to try to echo the narrative and promote it. You know, the whole Trump is friends with Epstein nonsense. And it says, Mr. Trump. So here it is. Katie Johnson. Mr. Trump had another girl and I. This is supposed to be the so-called Epstein victim that was victimized by Trump. And this is the story she made up. Mr. Trump had another girl and I dress as maids and pretend to clean the room. The other girl, Maria, was 12 years old. Mr. Trump ordered us to carry out a string of sex acts on each other and on him. After he finished, he said we both could have done better and then left. From her sworn affidavit about the third encounter where Trump raped her when she was 13 years old, her words have never been retracted or debunked, so they say. And there's the case number, right? So that case number will actually lead you to the civil lawsuit that Katie Johnson had her lawyer file, right? But what they won't tell you, because they want to sell you a certain narrative, so they give you one side of the story. What they won't tell you is the truth of the matter. And here it is. The case identified as that specific case number, titled Doe versus Trump, was a civil lawsuit filed in the United States District Court for the Southern District of New York on September 30th, 2016. The plaintiff, identified as Jane Doe, alleged that Donald J. Trump and Jeffrey Epstein sexually assaulted her when she was 13 years old in 1995. The complaint detailed claims of rape, sexual misconduct, criminal sexual acts, assault, battery, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and defamation. So these are all the allegations that were made in the lawsuit, right? Check this out. The case was assigned to Judge Ronnie Abrams, who scheduled an initial status conference for December 16th, 2016. A request for the issuance of a summons was filed against Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein on October 7th, 2016. So before Trump got into office and went after Epstein and prosecuted Epstein, they were already trying to connect Trump to Epstein. This was their way of trying to protect Epstein, because they figured if they connect Trump to Epstein, because remember, Trump didn't get elected till November 2016, didn't take office till January 2017. So this was pretty much towards the end of the 2016 presidential campaign when they tried to do all of this. So right before the election, they tried to do all of this. Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein on October 7th, 2016. However, the case was voluntarily dismissed by the plaintiff on November 4th, 2016. I think that was election day, wasn't it? Pursuant to Federal Rule of Civil Procedure, the dismissal was filed by the plaintiff's counsel, Thomas F. Meager, and the case was officially terminated on that date. It is important to note that the filing of a complaint does not constitute proof of the allegations made. It is merely the initial step in a legal process. The case has been inactive since its dismissal in 2016 and is not currently pending. So, in other words, they dropped the case. Oh, shit. Shout out to my brother Todd on the Venmo. My brother Todd hit me on the Venmo. He says, work truck. Appreciate you, Todd. I guess I could put that 5 towards the car wash, huh? Appreciate you, Todd. Now we're at 7. That puts us at 7 supporters. Shout out to each and every one of you guys. 3 more make it 10. 3 more makes it 10. What's happening? What's happening? We're so close. We're so close. We're so close. 76 watching on YouTube. 31 watching on Rumble. We can get 3 more supporters, man. That's less than 3%. I need 3 more supporters. Come on, y'all. We can do it. We can climb that mountain tonight. We can get up that hill. Took a whole lot of begging just to get up that hill. Now you must hit the Cash App. For this great content. All right, let me stop playing. So they will fight, but we are ready. Mass casualty event incoming. So now that we've gone over all the facts and I've shown you how the deep state is losing and on how many fronts, the propaganda war, the political war, because a lot of their puppets that got their political offices, it was basically just trading one Democrat out for another. But it exposed their election fraud and their election rigging. So they're going to have some trouble with that one. And I believe that trouble is going to come during the 2026 midterm elections. I showed you guys how they try to link Trump to Epstein to sell the false narrative, part of the propaganda war. I showed you guys the potential for the terrorist attacks, DOJ going after the funders and the rioters. So we know what to expect. We know that there's sleeper cells out there. We know that they have operatives embedded in almost every industry in this country. It's called their sabotage network is what the Zionists call it. And we also know that they have their infiltrators within the government at the highest levels. We know that they're there, but flushing them out, because they've already all been identified pretty much, it's just a matter of finding them and apprehending them. That's all it takes. But in doing so, once the apprehensions start, there will be blowback and they will lash out and there will be attempts at attacking the American people. But they will fight. But you are ready because now you understand how they play. Now you understand where they lie in wait. Now you understand that attending mass gatherings in public is a bad idea. Trying to fly at a time like this, probably a bad idea. Now you know. Protect yourself. Now you know how important elections are, or at least you should know. Unless you still believe in the wokey doke propaganda that your votes don't count, so you shouldn't vote. Just let the foreigners come in and let them cast their ballots and elect Mamdanis in every city. Yeah. Or let Spanberger beat the conservative Republican for the seat, for the governor's seat, because, well, Republicans, we don't need to vote. The system will fix itself. We don't need to participate in fixing it. Nope. The elections are rigged, so let's sit it out. And you see what happens when you sit it out? What happens when you sit it out is your enemies won't sit it out. And they'll now be operating from a position of advantage. You have essentially been neutralized. Oh, yes, Deborah, votes do matter. Wasn't it votes that got Trump in office? I don't know if you ever heard me explain this. And for those of you who didn't, let me explain to you why votes matter, whether the system is rigged or not. When the system is rigged, votes, in fact, votes matter even more when the system is rigged. Let me explain why, Deborah. And this will blow your mind. So just hear me out. When the system is rigged, those counter votes against whoever is the favored candidate by the establishment, those counter votes have to go somewhere. So they either have to go to the puppet candidate that they want to win, or they have to be discarded completely. But whatever the case may be, the amount of actual voters that voted for the good guy can always verify their votes. But the people who shifted the vote total for the bad guy, they won't be able to validate that gap in the votes. But the voters can, because they cast their votes. So the votes that don't get counted are proof that they're votes that aren't getting counted. You feel what I'm saying? So the counter votes make it harder for them to rig the elections and easier to detect that the elections have been rigged. Here's the other side to it. because that's on the downside. So on the downside, the counter votes simply verify that the elections are rigged. They verify the fraud. Right? Now on the upside of things, and Malcolm X explained this too. You should go look up Malcolm X's speech about eligible black voters in America. What he said was there's over 11 million eligible black voters in America. Only about 2 or 3 million actually vote. And still the black vote has so much power that it can sway either party to power or out of power. This is why the Democrats fight so hard for the black vote. Imagine the total political dominance black people would have, and I'm paraphrasing, the total political dominance black people would have if all 11 million eligible black voters actually voted. Now, here's the upside to the voting thing, right? Based on Malcolm X's principle, if the overwhelming majority of people turned out to vote, no amount of election fraud or rigging would be able to overwhelm or overshadow the votes of the people. They only account for a certain number of votes for the other side, whether that side is projected. If that side is projected to win, they'll only account for, because it's normally maybe 2 to 3% split for the winner. So if Trump is in the lead and he's projected to win by 2 or 3%, they're going to rig for about 4 or 5% of the votes to be flipped to make sure that the Democrat would win by at least 1 or 2%, but they win, right? Here's what they didn't account for, and here's what happened with Trump in 2016 and why they went so crazy in 2020. Votes do count, and they count a lot more than you think they do. Look at all the foreigners that flooded into New York, and now they got Mamdani as their fucking mayor. Right. We was told otherwise because we were misled. We were told that our votes don't count because those people are serving the establishment. Why would you not want to vote in your own country's elections when there's foreigners from other places coming to your country and voting in your elections and then ruling over you by putting themselves in power over you? That alone should show you that your votes do matter, right? But nevertheless, let me explain to you why mass turnout and voting as a block, as a unit, matters. You want to talk about black unity and black power and black advancement? The black power is in the black vote. That's why the Democrats have had power for so long, because they've always had 95+% of the black vote. And with that black vote, they were always a shoe-in to win in every major city. But in 2016, the elections were rigged for Hillary to win because Hillary's job was to come in and finish what Obama started, right? The gay agenda, the proxy wars funding ISIS, the pandemic, and the mass murder of American citizens, American patriots. Obama, when he won the election in 2008, he won with the record of first-time voters. And the highest amount of first-time voters that ever voted in an American election was during the Obama election in 2008 in 08. And Obama got a 9% new voter turnout. So that was the new high. So in 2016, when they were rigging the elections for Hillary, they figured that, well, with a hot new fresh face like Trump that everybody knows in America, he's definitely going to get a first-time voter turnout. But there's no way he could beat the black man. So let's rig the elections for a 10% sway or 11% sway to overwhelm that 9%. So they rigged it, and they were able to overwhelm that 9% first-time voter turnout. But what tipped the balance in Trump's favor was that Trump had actually beat Obama's record of 9% first-time voter turnout with a 15% first-time voter turnout. So that extra 6% of first-time voters is who got Trump into office. So with all the rigging in the world And the guarantee, so much so that Newsweek, a week before the election, published their Madam President edition with Hillary on the cover. With those first-time voters, those Americans that said, I support Trump and I'm going to go out and I'm going to cast my ballot, they made the difference and they overwhelmed the fraud. And this is why I've been preaching to my fellow Americans, black, white, Hispanic, whatever you may be. If you love America and you want the best for America, exercising your vote is the most important thing you can do for America. And if you don't think the political power matters or the political structure matters, you have to ask yourself, why does it matter so much to your enemies? And understand that it matters so much to your enemies because this is the weapon that your enemies use to wield against you. And the only reason why they have control of that weapon is because we as Americans refuse to pick it up. Political power is like the gun sitting on the table in a room full of people or in a room of 3 people. One guy is foaming out the mouth, high as hell, and he just wants to shoot everybody. The other guy, he wants to pick up the gun and put it in his holster so the crazy guy can't get it and shoot everybody. And then the third guy, he's like, I'm not into guns. I'm not going to touch the gun. So he turns his back and pretends that gun doesn't exist. Now, what happens if the guy that wants to holster that gun takes the position of the third guy and says, you know what? Guns are bad. I'm not going to pick up that gun either. I'm not going to touch it, and turns his back on the gun. Guess who's left with the gun? The crazy guy that wants to shoot everybody. So what happens to those other 2 guys that turn their backs and say they don't want to touch the gun? They get fucking shot in the back of the head. That's what happens to them. And that's what happens to Americans politically. They decide not to vote for who they want to fill this office to represent them. Thus, they turn their backs on the political process. And the crazy foaming out the mouth liberals that watch way too much MSNBC, they go to the voting booth and they cast their ballots. The millions of illegals they just flooded the country with, they go to the voting booth and they cast their ballots, while we, the Americans, turn up our noses at the process. Then what happens? We end up with a 90% Mexican LAPD. That's what happens. We end up with Zoran Mamdani as the mayor of New York. That's what happens. We end up with Ilhan Omar in Congress representing Minneapolis, Minnesota. That's what happens. Now, go back to the scenario with the 3 guys in the room with the gun. The crazy guy that wants to shoot everybody, the sane guy that wants to holster the gun, and the coward that wants to pretend the gun doesn't exist. Now, let's say, so I gave you the scenario of if both people, the coward and the good guy, decide not to pick up the gun, the crazy guy gets the gun. He gets the power. He kills everybody. Let's say the coward guy isn't so much of a coward, and he's actually on the side of the guy with the holster, like, yeah, that guy's crazy, and we can't let him get this gun. So one of us have to get this gun. Now there's 2 against 1. Now there's 2 good people against 1. So that crazy guy getting his hands on that gun, he wouldn't stand a chance. Because now one guy can hold him back or distract him while the other guy grabs the gun and puts it away. You see how much more powerful that is when the coward decides to turn around and face the situation and help the good guy? The good guy wins every time. But too many of us have been convinced to play the role of the coward. You get a day off from work. You pretty much get a paid vacation on election day. Why not go vote? Thank you, Deborah. I appreciate you. I appreciate you absorbing what I'm saying, because this is the same thing that I was trying to teach to folks when I used to go on Brother Sanchez's panel. But because Sanchez is an agent and his job is to keep you politically neutralized, he's going to sell you that idea no matter what. He's going to sell you that idea that your vote doesn't matter and you shouldn't vote, while simultaneously turning around and complaining about the politicians that other people vote for, without even connecting the dots and saying, hey, they're obviously using these political positions against us, so we need to take control of these political positions. No, he tells you, be the coward in the room, turn your back on the gun. That's what he tells you. Anybody that tells you don't vote in your own elections is telling you to turn your back on that gun and leave it on the table for the crazy guy to pick it up and shoot you in the back of the head. In other words, it seems like it's within their agenda to have the crazy guy pick up the gun and shoot you in the back of the head. I mean, that's the only way to make sense of it, right? Because if that guy that was telling you to turn your back on the gun really cared about you and did not want you to get shot in the back of the head by the crazy guy, he would not advise you to turn your back on the gun. In fact, he would advise you to go grab that motherfucker before the crazy guy did. And if he tells you to do anything other than that, he's working for the crazy guy that wants you dead. He's working for the enemy. Because when the smart people who can figure out the political games and see who's really on their side and who's full of shit, when they don't participate in the political process, who's left? The people who are brainwashed and deceived. And this is why the bad guys keep getting elected. And every time they get elected, they try to rig the system and tip the balance in their own favor. Because too many of us have been taught to turn our backs. And all that does is allows the enemy to come in and hurt us. And we have no way to fight back because we're not even facing the fight. We're sitting ducks and we're being taught to remain vulnerable rather than get involved. If Trump had not got that 15% first-time voter turnout, if those Americans did not get off their ass and say, you know what, I'm voting for Trump, fuck everybody else. If they did not do that, we wouldn't be here right now. And by be here, I mean most of us wouldn't be alive right now. They would have pumped us all full of COVID boosters until we dropped dead. Was that not what they were trying to do? The first booster, second booster, third booster. Was that not what they were trying to fucking do? Now, don't get me wrong about Brother Sanchez, Deborah. That's my brother. I love him. I got mad love for Sanchez. We had our falling outs and our disagreements. But when it comes to this political stuff, I'm particularly passionate about our disagreement because in his disagreement, he's serving the enemy and he's leading his followers to serve the enemy too. While pretending to be against the enemy, he's doing the enemy's job for them. That's why things get so heated when we talk politics, because politics, if you're living in the real world, in reality, and you have kids to raise in this reality, politics would be one of your top concerns, because whoever's running things now sets the stage for the future and will determine what kind of life your kids are going to have. And as a parent, if you want your kids to have a better life than you did, it is your responsibility to be involved in the politics, because it's the politics that determines how things go in the future. So you don't give a fuck about your kid's future if you don't give a fuck about your own politics and who's running your country. You can't. And as a parent alone, just that alone makes me want to get interested in it and figure out what the fuck's going on so I can steer my kids in the right direction. Think about all the parents whose kids are physically and mentally handicapped now because they believed the propaganda and went and gave their kids all the shots. because they weren't paying attention to the politics. If they were paying attention to the politics, they would have seen that the crooked politicians are the ones that are being endorsed by the vaccine companies. The crooked politicians are the ones that are giving money to the vaccine companies. The crooked politicians, in fact, are the ones trying to pass laws to force us to take the vaccines from the vaccine companies. So why would I trust the vaccine company? You see? But they don't know nothing about the crooked politicians and what they're actually doing. All they know is that the politicians are crooked, but they trust their doctor because they don't see that connection between the doctor and the politician. They miss that part because you have to be involved in the politics to see it, because that's where the connections are politically. Political. So I vehemently disagree with him on the politics, because when it comes to the political talk, and look at all the anti-Trump streams he did. I mean, what could be more telling than that? You're supposed to be against the fake news and the establishment. They lie about everything, even the shape of the earth, which I agree, they do lie about that. But they're right about Trump being bad, though. Like, does that make any sense? Does that really make any sense? That makes no fucking sense at all. CNN lies about everything, but when they tell you that Trump's bad, he agrees with them on that. That makes no fucking sense at all. None. So when it comes to politics, he's serving the enemy and he lies to his people. Now, when it comes to the other stuff that's beyond politics, like the spiritual stuff, the ancient cosmology, the science, that type of stuff, I rock with him on that. The symbolism, I rock with him on that, because his presentations are powerful and deeper than anything that I've seen from anybody else. But that's how you rope the audience in. You put out great shit that's true, gain their trust. And then when it comes to that one issue that actually matters, that does directly affect their lives, the politics, then you give them the lies, because they'll accept it, because everything else you gave them was true. So I appreciate the truth that he teaches, but I also understand how dangerous the lies are that he tells. He's a communist that demonizes capitalism, when in fact, all the poor people that he claims to advocate for, capitalism is the only real way to get them out of poverty. Communism is what got them in poverty. Socialism is what got them in poverty. Their mama never learned how to start a business because she lived off Section 8 and food stamps her whole fucking life. And maybe worked a job and collected child support. So for a lot of folks who grew up in that situation, if they want to build something for themselves, they got to start from zero. They had no living example of that. The only example they had was dependency and poverty. So they never learned the inner workings of the economy that drives the poverty and also drives the wealth. And very few people from poor communities are actually able to figure out that puzzle. And 9 out of 10 times, they end up being successful in business, productive entrepreneurs. And if they live in a blue city, by the time they retire, they'll be living in a red state, in a red city. You know why? Because when them tax the rich Democrats start robbing their asses through taxes, they're going to move. When it comes to setting the stage for the future, because here's the thing. A lot of people believe government is illegitimate and there should be no government. And you know what? I agree. Because there was a time on this earth when humans lived in harmony and there was no government. But the only problem is, back then, those people had the ability to govern themselves. Today, people don't have the ability to govern themselves. Hence your Diddy's, your Jeffrey Dahmers, and the list goes on. So there must be some sort of governance, because we all reap the benefits of excuse me, of that governance. But when that governance becomes overbearing and gets too much power and too much control over things that we, the people, should have autonomy over, like, for example, who we hire to fix our house, or how long how tall our grass could be, then we now have a problem where government gets too big. But for the people that believe there should be no government, they think we could just pull a plug and the government stops. No, you pull the plug, the government brings in new people, and they keep the machine going. And now you're even lower on the priorities chart, because not only are you a useless eater, but now you're a useless eater who's a threat to the establishment. Now you're an enemy of the state. So to say there should be no government, that's wishful thinking. That's not based in reality. Because the reality is, if you don't vote, the dummies are going to go vote. And guess who's going to get elected? A dumbass. If you don't vote, the foreigners are going to go vote. And guess who's going to get elected? A foreigner. That's how that works. But what conservatives believe in is small, limited government, where the only parts of the government we allow to function are the parts that benefit us. You know, like your public works departments that maintain the infrastructure, the roads, the bridges, the power grid, the plumbing system, the sewage, the drainage, sanitation, emergency services, you know, all that type of shit. Public education, even possibly. But everything else, like Department of Health and Department of Child Services and all that stupid shit, sheriffs and police. Well, one of them, all we need is sheriffs because the sheriff is elected, police is appointed, so we don't need police. You see what I'm saying? It's like redundancy. The welfare departments, we don't need those fuckers. Abolish them. The IRS, abolish them. Because if government was smaller, their power would be much more limited, and our taxes would be a hell of a lot lower. And we would have a more efficient government that actually serves the people. And it would be so efficient, in fact, to the point where it would damn near become non-existent. So by shrinking the size of government and pinpointing the focus of government control rather than expanding it, we eventually will move one step closer to that fantasy of not having a government, until eventually we'll be able to govern ourselves so well that there'll be no need for the government to exist. That's the way it works. It's like a cancer tumor where you apply the treatment, the CBD or the THC or whatever, and the tumor shrinks and shrinks and shrinks and shrinks because it's growing on your brain and they can't just go in and cut it out. So it has to be treated delicately and gradually removed rather than cutting it out. And this is why conservatism wins the argument every time, because it actually makes fucking sense. But the agents and the liberals and the enemies of the people, when it comes to politics, you'll always find yourself being told shit that don't make no sense. Like abolish the government. Abolish the government. Who's gonna pay your mama's Section 8? Who's gonna pay for your mama's Medicaid? You see, the abolish the government today people, they don't realize the chaos that would throw the world into, or at least the country into. And eventually, after a short period of time, they'll be wishing that there was government. Hell, all the cities that did the defund the police, look how fast they had to refund the police. Look how quick they had to do it. They'll find themselves in a chaotic situation where their lives are constantly under threat. For the women, it's even worse. Because if there's no government, no governance to govern those who can't govern themselves, that pervert up the street that been looking at your ass for the last 6 months and want to put some dick up in you, but ain't held you down and raped you yet because he's afraid of going to jail, guess what? If there is no government, no police, no jail, what's there to stop him from doing that to you? Now you're in real danger. Because, yeah, you might say, well, the men around me are going to protect me. But are they always going to be there 24/7? No. And for the men, that dude down the street, I see you pull out that new whip and they mad at you. And he's so mad and jealous, or he want to fuck your girl and he hates you and he's jealous and he mad at you because his girl's fat and he wants to smash your girl because she fine. And he's so jealous he wants to kill you. Well, what's stopping him? The threat of jail, the threat of government intervention in his life. But if there is no government, what's there to stop him? What's the deterrent? What's the deterrent? It's one of those be careful what you wish for scenarios. And this is why a gradual shrinking of government will lead to more stability than just abolishing it overnight. So I'm not advocating for government, saying that government is great and this is a wonderful thing and we need more of it. Hell fucking no. But what I am saying is we've become so dependent on the idea of government that our lives would instantaneously collapse if it were to be abolished because we've become so dependent on the government. So now we have to be weaned off of it. And that's been my point the whole time. And one thing I don't like that Sanchez does is that deceptive shit where I make my points and then he spins it to make it seem like I'm advocating for government when everything I'm saying makes perfect sense. That's why I can only say I don't even go over there and waste my time no more. I say it on my show because at least I get to say it freely and uninterrupted by a bunch of bullshit. A bunch of bullshit that don't mean nothing and ain't gonna help no fucking body. And if that's what our people sit around talking about all day, well, that explains why we're at where we're at. Because everybody's on some bullshit and nobody's looking at the situation for what it is. But them foreigners that are coming in, they're smart enough to know, hey, if I go vote, I can run this country. They're smart enough to know that. Meanwhile, the people who've been here the longest still haven't seemed to figure it out. And the ones who have figured out that, hey, voting actually gives me some power, they end up voting for politicians that strip their power and extort their money because they're too stupid to think to know better. Meanwhile, the smart people are being neutralized by the whole your votes don't count propaganda. So again, when the smart people don't vote, guess who's going to show up on election day? That's right, the stupid motherfuckers. Teresita Von Baum. Yes, that's been my thing with Sanchez. He loses credibility when he gets into politics because it's not his wheelhouse. That's my wheelhouse. Can't debate me on it. He debated me on the open borders in 2019. 2019. Who remembers that? Teresita, were you around back then? I barely had my channel going back then, and I was on his panels a lot. And we had a whole debate about open borders. He was all for the open borders. And I was saying, close the border, build the fucking wall, stop these people from coming in, secure the border. And everybody was on Sanchez's side because that's his audience. They love him. That's his people. They'll go along with him. And look at the fucking disaster that the open borders caused. And here we are 6 years later. And guess who was right? Because I know what the fuck I'm talking about. It's my wheelhouse. But again, I learned a lot from Sanchez when it came to the ancient cosmology, the spirituality, and that type of stuff. And a lot of what I learned from him, I was able to go back in American history, see the symbolism and the spirituality being practiced by the founding fathers, even by their use of the term creator in the Declaration of Independence. That speaks volumes. And we'll get into that on another show. I don't want to drag this out too long because I feel like I've been here long enough. Yeah, we're touching 3 hours. So I'm gonna get ready to shut it down. But I just wanted to put that out there and make that clear. That's all I've been trying to yeah, Mike Hill, you were there. I remember you being around back then. He debated me on voting. I won that debate too. We did that on Tommy Sotomayor's show. But yet he'll run around and say he's undefeated in debates. No, you're not. That's crazy. That's crazy to me. But the point is, I love my brother, but it's very hard to trust him because when it comes to what really matters and what really affects our lives on the day-to-day, how much we pay in taxes, how much we bring home on our paychecks, the cost of gas, the cost of food, the laws we have to live under. Can I have a gun to protect myself? Do I have to go without a gun to protect can I not have a gun to protect myself? That type of shit. Is my city full of illegal aliens that don't speak English but speak with their hands and beat people up and rob people and shit? Or do I live in a safe city where I can walk down the street and not worry, or let my kids go outside to play without worrying about them getting snatched up? All that comes down to the politics. The politics is why that matters. Yeah, that's the game they play. They'll cut me off, Wiggle Man. They'll cut me off in the middle of me making a point when my point is starting to destroy their point. And if it ain't Sanchez that'll cut me off, it'll be one of the other stooges on the panel. And they'll cut me off and just start saying a bunch of nothing and a bunch of bullshit. So I come to the realization that ain't the place for me. And every time I go over there, it's just a waste of time. It's literally just a waste of time. Just not my speed. Like let him continue to mislead the dummies. But the smart people, the faithful few that actually really do want what's best for their country, they're going to come listen to me. It happened before. So I wouldn't be too surprised if it happened again. But anyway, guys, so that brings us to the end of tonight's show. I hate to leave it on that note, but it is what it is, man. It is what it is. Let me run through these promos one more time. So just as a quick reminder, over here on YouTube, you can go subscribe to the Citizen Man Backup channel. The Citizen Man Backup channel, the link is in the description box of every video on YouTube and Rumble. Stay connected with me on YouTube in case they zap me over here on Citizen Man TV. Yeah, Wiggle Man, I'm gonna check out some shows, man. Also, follow me on Rumble. If you don't have a Rumble account, like you try to click the like and it won't let you, or you try to click the follow and it won't let you, you have to create a Rumble account. It's free. It doesn't take much, but a few minutes and an email address. So create that Rumble account, become an active user, help grow the platform itself, and also give me a follow, like the videos, help grow the channel. Check out all the other videos that I have available because I got over 500 videos on Rumble and a lot of good information in those past streams. And of course, last but not least, I think we got 7. Yeah, we got 7 supporters on the board. So 3 more could get us to 10. But if you guys would like to support the show, if you felt like the show was worth it, you guys enjoyed the content, you like the information, and you want to show some support, you can do so by sending in a kind donation via Cash App, PayPal, or Venmo by using the tags scrolling across the screen in the banner below. The links that are pinned to the top of the YouTube chat in the black box where it says Citizen Man TV in yellow. Just click the yellow. The box opens up. All the links are there. You can also find those links in the description box of every video on YouTube and Rumble. And I would like to give some shout outs to the folks that supported tonight. Shout out to Elsine on the Venmo. She says, love your content. Shout out to my sister Cherokee on the Cash App. Shout out to Deborah Ticey. Shout out to Stacy and my brother Robert with that Q challenge. Appreciate you guys for that support. And a big shout out to my good brother Lee14224 on the PayPal saying have a great Friday show. That's 7 supporters, y'all. That's 7 supporters. If I can get 3 more. We're still at 80 people. We got 80 on YouTube. We made it all the way to like 85. I just saw a second ago. And we're at 26 on Rumble. Can I get 3 more people who have not donated yet for the night to hit the Cash App, PayPal, or Venmo? Is that possible, or am I asking too much? Is it possible, or am I asking too much? I thought 3 out of 100 was not too much. But you guys making me feel weird, like it's too much. I'm like, you got enough money. Forget about it. No, it ain't about the money. It's about the people. It's about the people. And I need 3 more people to give me money. But it ain't about the money. Now, it's really not. If I get 3 people, even if it's $1, that's cool. I just want to have 10 names to shout out. D. Allen said he just sent the Cash App. Uh-oh. Hold on a second. D. Allen just said he sent the Cash App. Oh, that's because I got my Citizen Man Cash App open. Maybe if I open this one, it'll show up. Hang on a second. There we go. My brother D. Allen with the Cash App. He says, salute, Citizen Man. Appreciate you, D. Allen. Salute to you. We're at 8 now. So D. Allen chipped us down to 8. So we got 2. We need 2 more. 2 more. 2 more. 2 more sumo. Appreciate you, D. Allen. Yeah, I just had to switch Cash Apps because I was in the wrong account because apparently Cash App made me create a Citizen Man business account. But I still use the personal with the $sign Jaden Ben rather than the $sign Citizen Man. But there is a $sign Citizen Man now. So I guess I can add that to my support links. And also go check out Brother B Miles' channel. He just dropped a new album. You guys might want to give it a listen. He's got that old school boom bap flavor. I really like. That's one of my favorite styles of hip hop. So shout out to B Miles for that shit. I still haven't gotten the time to sit down and listen to the album because I've just been on go. But I'm definitely gonna buy a copy and check it out. And I'm gonna get that link from him for the album so you guys can purchase copies of your own as well. Because, well, when you're making Deborah says it's knocking. Yeah, I've been hearing a lot of great reviews. I can't wait to give it a listen. And when you're making music, it's all about album sales. It's all about spins and album sales. So I'm going to help B Miles get those album sales, and I'm going to get those bigger platforms to give them some spins because it's all original music. So that's good. And I have connections to several large platforms. I just don't. And you would think with the connections that I have and the people I'm in contact with, I should be able to just get on one of those big platforms and boost myself back up again and this and that. But I just don't have the time, man. I just don't have the time these days. I barely got time to do my own show. You think I got time to sit on somebody else's fucking show? You know what I'm saying? But back in the day when I first started and I was making the rounds from channel to channel, I did have the time. And it was effective because it grew my channel pretty quick. But, you know, hopefully now that the slow season is coming in, it'll pick back up. Oh, shit. Something's going on. Something's going on. State of being Wiggly. He said for peace. Peace to you, brother Wiggly. Peace to you. We're at 8. We're at 8. No, I mean, we're at 9. My bad. We're at 9. Shit, I'm tripping. Trying to rob y'all. I'm trying to small hat y'all. We're at 9, y'all. We got 9 supporters on the board so far. We need one more. We got room for one more. We need one more. One more. Can I get one more? One more. Come on, man. I know y'all. This happens all the time. We get to like when my goal was $100, we get to like 97, and then that shit just stop. And then the goal became 10 supporters, we get to 9, that shit just stop. Like, why, man? Deborah Ticey says, I've been busy too, especially last month. Yeah, man. Yeah. But anyway, guys, we have exceeded the 3-hour mark. I firmly believe we have. Yep, 3 hours and 5 minutes. We did get 9 supporters on the board. So I appreciate each and every one of you guys. And shout out to my replay viewers, anybody that's going to watch, anybody that's going to see this after the live stream. Shout out to y'all. And funny, because I get more replay viewers than live viewers. It's the weirdest thing. Maybe it's because I need to go live during the day because my replay viewers watch the replay during the day, and I have more of them than nighttime viewers. No offense to you guys. So perhaps if I do my streams in the daytime, I'll get those numbers to the live rather than the smaller number of the night owls that stay up all night like I do. It's not healthy. Maybe we should stop doing this to each other. Maybe I should stop doing this to y'all. Give y'all the broadcast at a decent time, like regular folks, instead of being up all night drinking caffeine and shit. But 9 supporters, I guess that's cool. But anyway, guys, I got to get up out of here. So I appreciate you guys being here. I appreciate the love. Definitely appreciate the support. The live show numbers have been looking great. Maybe I'm touching on good topics. Deborah Ticey says, I love the night show. Yeah, I was thinking about doing a combination of both. Like keeping the night schedule. Like when work really just dies down and I got a whole week off, I'll keep the night show schedule, but then I'll do like maybe I'll start another show and do a 1-hour segment or 2-hour segment during the weekdays, during the daytime, and call it like Citizen Man News Live or Citizen Man News or Citizen Man Live News or whatever the hell, you know what I'm saying? Some shit. And just cover news articles and shit like that. And then on the night shows, we'll do the deep stuff. I don't know. Just brainstorming some ideas. But anyway, 3 hours has passed and it's been great. Check out my Trump fuck you too shirt. If you guys want to get one of these, I'm about to start redesigning them and get them back in the t-shirt store. So it's actually a letter. It's in letter form, business letter form to be exact. So there is his mailing address. It's the body of the letter, signature at the bottom. Kind of cool. American Savage says, I see demons. You like that song, huh? I got to pull my tracks back out too, man. I got to pull my music back out. And B Miles did say he was going to give me a feature on his next album. So I think that's pretty awesome. I think that's pretty cool. But anyway, appreciate you guys being here. Appreciate the love. Appreciate the support. See you on the next show. Citizen Man, out. And don't be zesty like Tariq Nasheed.